Smartly Uneducated.
Well, welcome back to Smartly Uneducated.
Oh, he's jumping right in. We're not even gonna get jiving first.
No, absolutely
Fuck
not.
you.
We gotta just hop into it, big dog.
On a time crunch here, man.
3 hours.
Yeah.
We got 3
I'm
hours.
Evan.
Welcome to Smartly Uneducated.
You fucking ass.
Anyways, continue.
Intro.
Intro time. We're finally doing intros. Welcome back to Smartly Uneducated. I'm Evan.
I'm Ben.
Yeah.
And we have Mr. J back.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the shop. I don't think I've ever met you in person before. This
No.
guy's talked a lot about you.
Same.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yep.
Yeah, him and I have some stories to go back.
Yes, we do. But I wrote up notes again for this podcast. I went back. So this episode's going to be the rise and downfall of America mixed with basically the lack of trust that the American people have now with their government. It's
Okay.
at the highest point of the lack of trust in history.
Huh.
I mean, I don't want to say that. Don't hold
Well,
me at that.
I don't know if it would be like the highest point of lack of trust, but it's at least the most publicized that you can see. I mean, like, so many people have a voice into it now to where they get to expel their lack of trust. So it's like some little dude in a farm in Kansas can be able to say how he feels, and someone all across the United States gets to relate to what that person feels and go, okay, there's a large, vast majority of people who don't trust the people that they put in place to run this society.
Yeah.
Do you think that we're like way too connected as a society nowadays?
I do.
For that exact reason. Like everybody is immediately connected to Jing Zhao in China with Bobby Brown and fucking.
I've talked
Idaho.
about that before.
But do you mean it like, do you think it's a negative to have people be
Yes.
able to be that interconnected?
Yes.
Why?
Because throughout history, so I did a deep dive on this before. So back in the day, long time ago, we were all in tribes, right? Inside that tribe was your interpersonal connections. That was your little community. And everything revolved inside that. Yeah, you would parlay and deal with other tribes, but you didn't have that instant access to information that was just right in front of your face. Like, you know, you didn't find out about things till probably after they happened or whatever. But when you're in these tribes, everything becomes so much more intricate to make everything work because everyone depended on each other. But then as technology evolved and people started expanding, that started diminishing because now you're interconnected to farther people away. Next thing you know, you're around the world, and that's where we are now.
So-
And so it's like this it's like an almost overstimulation of connection. That
But I have an
you don't know how
interjection
to, you
into
don't know
that,
how to
though.
handle it.
Because I don't think that part of that problem is being able to communicate with somebody on the other side of the world. I think it's how grouped together people became in, you know, urban environments. So, I mean, if you look at metropolises and you look at how many people all live so close to close, you know, or next to each other, on top of each other, and what they all rely on for resources. You know, you are no longer a out there, you know, gatherer, hunter, survivor, any of those things. You took all that away to live in this metropolis and then surround yourself with, okay, I'm going to put other people in charge of protecting my safety and my well-being as well as everyone else's. I mean, at the time when you establish something like that, you're talking small groups of numbers of people that are coming together that are, okay, we're going to elect local officials to set rules and regulations in place to protect our little society. And then you go to Dallas, Fort Worth today, and you're talking about millions of people and a select few people who are going to govern how those people are going to survive in this society.
Yeah.
And then you think about the overall, you know, government in the entire country and the amount of people that they have to, you know, basically provide that same comfort as well. And then you have distrust that occurs because when you give someone that kind of power to be in charge of all this and you don't monitor really what they're doing because there's not a lot of communication, you don't know what's going on this side of the country 100 years ago, because how are you going to talk to that person? A switchboard? You know, someone swapping lines over so that you can get connected to a party line and someone will pick up and you can go, hey, got some questions as to what's going on today. You know, I mean, the likelihood of getting that information was low. You relied on newspapers, local media, things like that to get that information. And that's how we solely survived on getting information for a long time. The ones who questioned it were kooks. You know, why would you question where we're getting this information? Of course it's true. But as people had the opportunity to speak their truth, their opinions, you found more people who related to that. So the idea that there's more people who don't trust the government today, I find kind of not factual. I think just more of those people are able to communicate together on the same
Nova
topic.
disagrees with you.
Yeah,
Probably.
She's
Doc
like,
definitely
fuck
does
you,
it.
dude.
He's like, who cares about this topic?
Hey, everything I was citing though, that's from just psychological studies.
I
That
mean,
was done by
I agree with Casey.
historians and
I also agree
all
with
that
you,
crap.
Ben, but I think as a human race, as a human society, our tribes, as you referred to it as, have grown and have changed and have evolved.
Yeah.
Instead of having our local society in our small village off of the river, it's now our local society and tribe on the internet. So we have, you can break it down to Facebook, TikTok, Reddit, all these specific tribes, if you will, that have their own specific views and reality based on what they intake on a regular basis.
Well, and think about what also comes into play with that is like when it was a small tribe or it's a small village or it's a small town, you know, back then you had the people who lived on the outskirts of town who were your farmers. You had your people who were the pharmacists. You had the people who ran, you know, the bank. And you had everybody in this town work together to allow everyone in that town to survive.
Yeah.
You didn't rely on outsourcing all of these needs to be brought to you. So as soon as you make it an outsource, I need someone to bring all these things to the people who live here because we don't do any of that on our own. I think that's where the government looked at like, well, they can't do anything without us. They need us to connect them with, you know, they need Idaho to get connected with, you know, California so that they can get potatoes, whatever it may be. But they're setting this connection up and now they're in charge of it. So now they set their limitations and their expectations to it. And then you let this government who doesn't know what you're dealing with here be in control of all of it. You know, I mean, you got to think when we first decided, hey, we're going to go from the East Coast and start working our way west. It's not like the president of the country at those times and stuff was like, you know, reaching out to them on a regular basis to be like, hey, you guys paying your taxes over there? No, these guys were just, they were going to new land and they were setting the rules as to how they were all going to survive together. Now they were all under what, you know, I mean, I guess in a business perspective, you consider it was a conglomerate, you know, here's the mother company at the top and here's all the other ones, all the different states, you know, and they're all kind of regulating themselves. As soon as that power structure flips and it goes, well, no, we're going to set our own rules for everyone.
Yeah.
That's whenever I think the questions started coming in because it's like, well, I mean, we're happy doing what we're doing. Why do you need to tell me what I need to change? This started a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Small towns lost to big government. But now we're at a point to where more of those people can go on a platform like this
True.
and express like, hey man, this is how I feel about what our government's doing. And then you have more people who can go, you know what, I agree, but I have a few other opinions towards it. And then now you have more people who are speaking out towards the government and those things. And that's where it's like, what's going to happen from this? What's going to be the cause of this downfall that it seems like we're headed towards? And when is it going to happen? What do we think it's going to be?
Well, on that note, I made highlights. So I did the other thing like I did for that one podcast. I actually did notes. So I wrote up pretty much highlighted moments, like there were controversial moments basically from the 50s to now that were like extremely controversial and bad, where it was showing the corruption in government, which was setting the, you know, which fed into people really building that more of the taste in their mouth of not trusting anything to do with government and politicians. So like there's quite a few. I think there's like 18 different highlighted ones I did from the 50s till now.
I mean, I think people have always questioned what the government is doing right or wrong. I mean, George Washington himself sort of was against what the military and the government was doing. That's why he did what he did in general, as a surveyor, as a landlord, and all these things as he was. So I think people have always hated, or rather questioned, what the government has done. Nowadays, it's just so prevalent and noticeable that the government is fucking you over so bad.
They don't hide it.
They have quit hiding
No,
it.
in fact, I took a
They
picture.
publicize it.
I'm going to touch on it real quick. And this has to do with what we're doing right now with the inflation shit that's going on, that everyone's like this huge recession we're in right now. And the economy is shit. And, you know, right now, the people we have in office, the Biden administration is claiming that trying to talk like, oh, they're doing so fucking good. No, they're not. This is the worst it's ever been. And I have proof of it. You go into Walmart. I took a picture on my phone. There is a helium tank. They say the inflation's up to 9% now, or 8 or 9%, somewhere in there, which is fucking like 5 or 6% higher than it was when Trump was in office.
I mean, it was 12% in the 90s.
I know, but hear me out real quick. Let me get this out, because we're not dealing with 8%. We're getting more of 50% inflation by the time it gets to us as these citizens. So in Walmart right now, perfect example, those helium tanks that you buy, and it comes with the little bit of helium in this tiny little tank so you can fill balloons.
The red tank, right?
Yes. And it comes in a box about this big.
Right.
That box I bought 2 years ago. 2 years ago, right? I bought it 2 fucking years ago. Cost me $28.99. No joke. It was $28. It is now $52 for that product. Same size, no difference. No difference. Same thing. And the reason for that is that that inflation starts at the top, and as it goes down, because businesses cost business more to make the product, have materials, do all these things, and then by the time it gets to us, it's marked up almost 50% more than it was before. So, 8% inflation. It was like, yeah, maybe at this aspect, at this tier up here, but for the common citizen, when you go into the store, you're paying twice the amount of money. That's not 8%. That's either, fluctuates between 50% to 100% more.
But it's not a controlled market. That's the problem, is any of those industries is not a controlled market. So they get to do whatever kind of markup that they want.
The reason
whatever taxation that they're
because
given.
I looked them up, and I looked up all their shit.
The first statement that you said was, it's the worst that it's ever been. I'm 32 years old, and I can remember whenever Clinton was in office, and things like that. And it's like, for several times during my life, I've heard during presidencies, and I've heard during these times, it's the worst that it's ever been.
It's always the worst.
So
right?
it's always the worst. Like you said, it's always the worst that it's ever been at that moment. Because it's like, okay, well, when Trump was president, there was some times that they wanted to say it's the worst that it's ever been. And then when the new president comes on, you don't know in what aspect they're referring to it being the worst that it's ever been. Inflation rates have been through the roof. This isn't the first time. This has happened before.
No, it has happened before. But this is the highest it's ever been.
But
this is the highest.
But it's not the highest. It's spiked. So what happens is they do a spike in interest rates. And then whenever they say interest rates are coming down, they don't bring them down to what they were. And then you see another large spike that exceeds the other. If you do a 10% spike and then you bring it down 2 or 3% and say the interest rates are going down, and then the next spike happens and it goes up another 8%, and now it's at 15%, and they go, oh my God, this is the biggest, this is the worst it's ever been.
No,
because it spiked up to here.
Is because I deep dove into this shit.
Bring it up. Let's see it.
Well, I just made notes of the thing, because you want to talk about that. We weren't going to talk about inflation particularly.
Oh, you brought it up, man.
But at the same time, inflation has to do with
even
the
back in
downfall.
2008, companies weren't doing that. Things were more expensive. They did go up in price, but they weren't twice the amount of money.
But they were.
At the grocery
they
store.
were. It depends on what you're talking about and what industry. Whenever these things
We're talking
happen,
about the common day-to-day citizen on just basic necessities.
but your interest rates didn't go up across the board on everything.
No, you didn't. I'm saying I did it.
But you don't have the data to show me.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
Well, I don't see you guys looking shit up.
I don't need
But
to.
this isn't our data. This isn't our data that we're recalling.
Listen, man, we're just gonna take my word for it.
Well, back in 2008, the reason why everything sort of went to shit is all these lenders were giving out free money for people to buy houses.
Yeah, they were giving loans out to anybody for anything.
They did that 2 years ago during COVID.
Yeah.
They were giving out loans to everybody. And these houses we're talking were $700 grand. They're like, yeah, go ahead, buy it, whatever. Yeah, buy it.
If you default, so what?
So we're probably going to see that again here in like 2 years when people can't afford their houses anymore.
Hence, I will say 2 facts that it doesn't matter. You don't have to look shit up. One fact is this: the dollar value is the less it's ever been today than in fucking history. But no, that's a straight up fact.
I'm not saying I'm not debating
add that
it.
inflation bullshit. Let's just say 8%. Add that to how much the value of the dollar has increased or decreased. Sorry.
But you're talking about a currency that is not even considered
math on it. It's like, okay,
but you're talking about a currency that is not even in the considerable number range of what the debt in the economy is.
The only
that
thing
is causing right. So you think we're over $36 billion?
Not the worst it's ever been?
The only thing I'm not saying about, and the reason why I think it is the worst it's ever been, Because my butt plugs have gone up incredibly in price. I can only afford one a week now. Come on.
He's trying to gate that motherfucker, man. He's trying to go up in size.
So I'm like
Gauging his ears,
gauging my
man.
asshole.
Oh god.
No, I mean,
No, that's actually
simply what
true,
I'm
though.
trying to say, though,
True
on the
facts.
matter of
what
that.
he just said is actually true because
Wait.
just hear me out. I went to a Christmas party last year.
You went to a butthole gay.
No, my wife got invited by one of her
Getting
coworkers
worse.
who's gay, right? The boyfriends or whatever. They invited us over for this like Christmas party, right? Because she works with them. We go, we show up, and I was put in charge of getting the gifts for the white elephant game, right? Where you buy gifts. I bought nothing but sex toys. 'Cause it'd be hilarious to give a bunch of gay
It is
people.
very funny.
Because everyone at the party was gay. We were the only straight couple there. So
Did you just get him a bunch
So
of
he
fleshlights?
says.
we got
He showed up to a gay party with a bunch of toys and was like, hey,
I
girl.
bought a 12-inch. It was a 12-inch rainbow dick.
You know how he knows the
Dildo.
measurement?
Oh, because he did that in the box?
His insertion rate.
I just compared size and like, yeah, that's about.
He's like, that's about 12.
It's 6 inches deep. We're good.
Half of it's still sticking out. That's a 12er right
It's-
there.
He got to the
Yeah.
green ring.
Different kind of fishing.
Yeah. But no, when I went, I had never bought any of that shit before. And whenever I was at the store picking it up, because I thought it'd be hilarious, because I didn't tell my wife that I was gonna buy those as the gifts. She thought I was gonna buy just normal shit, and I just went and bought really fucked up sexual stuff. I thought it'd be funny. So when I bought it though,
You know,
I
he's
didn't know
got
how
some
much that
black
shit
leather
cost.
mask with a zipper on it in his closet right
Little
now.
kid suit up there.
Hey, the best part was there was a glamour butt plug,
From
and
the
the
American
gay
Horror
people were
Story.
fighting over
What's
it.
a gay? What's
No
a
joke.
glamour butt plug?
It has like a big diamond on the end and looks all sparkled, like good for attention.
Oh,
Yeah, so you can look like like
You can
you're,
bejewel your
like, worth
asshole.
something.
I wonder if I get like implants, like how people get like stud implants in their face. If I can get one around my O-ring.
But yeah, so no, when I bought them though,
In the shape
They
of
were-
a starfish.
I did not know how expensive that shit was. It was expensive. It was like,
Dude, butt plugs are expensive.
dude, this shit was all expensive. And the butt plug I got, like, dude, the gay people were fighting over it. No joke. They were all like trying to trade, and like people were trying to steal it because it was a butt plug. But when you put it in, it goes from being like a little point, and it got like that fucking wide, and they were like fighting over the thing. It had a big old like fake diamond thing on the end, and I was just like, I remember I leaned over to my wife. I was like, are they really fighting over that fucking thing right now? And she was like, I don't know what gay people are into, but I guess they're into that.
They
I was
think
like,
about you when they use it.
Yeah, they do. I'm sure they
They
do. They're
probably
like,
do.
you remember that guy? All right, push it in
He
further.
had funny hair.
One guy who's apparently in the closet.
He
told my
seemed
wife
like
that
he
I
was really straight, but
There's people at my wife's work have a crush on me, and they're all men.
nightlife.
That's good to know that if you ever decide that you're gay, that
Yeah,
you have
I mean,
plenty
you-
of options.
Only
At least you know that you're going to be popular.
I'm marketable.
You know, I mean, if
somewhere.
you ever decide to start cross-dressing and go down that alley, and I do mean a figurative alley, you know.
Oh, the best part. Guess who fought over the giant dildo?
Your wife.
I wish. I was like, girl, bring that
They're
here.
each pulling an end of it. It's like, stop.
We're gonna try double penetration with a real one and a fake one. See how this works.
Great.
Like, but no, the
He's the
people
double.
who were fighting over it were it was the only lesbian couple there, and I made a joke, and I thought no one heard.
Was it double-sided?
No. But I leaned over
Just going
quietly
one
to
way,
my
huh?
wife, and I just said, I was like, see, lesbians at the end of the day, they want something that's shaped like a dick going in their shit. And I thought only my wife heard it, and one of the other gay people heard it, and they just started laughing, and then they just started telling everybody what was just said, and I was like, oh no, I'm about to get fucking crucified. No, it was just a bunch of gay guys making fun of the lesbian couple wanting dick. I was like,
Hey,
Oh, yeah, dude.
I was like,
This is a time for equality, okay?
Oh,
If
great.
a lesbian wants a dick, she should have full range to have one.
I mean, that's a pretty standard thing
I
in the
just
gay
thought it was
community, though,
hilarious,
right? Is that gay dudes usually don't like lesbians.
Is that really a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty standard.
I mean, I've had some friends who are gay, and it's like, I mean, I guess our conversation topics were never like, how do you feel about lesbians?
It was kissing topics.
Are my lips supple enough?
Do you find me Randy, baby?
Groovy, maybe.
Can you show me how to pleasure a dude the best way so I can show my wife?
See, I thought it was just a South Park thing. Gays hated the lesbians, you know?
Do you twist while you do it, or what?
Oh, scissor me.
Give this monkey what she wants.
So how does the government fuck us over?
Because of gay shit like this. No.
I mean, if we're going back to, I guess, topic on that,
So
the
go ahead.
I know there's like a lot of different times where there's been, you know, controversy where people have questioned the government's antics, what they're not telling us. I mean, and more of that is coming out today, you know, especially with like UFOs and stuff like that, which is really cool to see, you know, that, you know, we're getting more of these things answered. So it's like no longer a conspiracy where you're looked at like a guy with, you know, tinfoil on your head or something, you know, for thinking about it. But I think at a time like right now, the politics and the people in those politics in our government, it's like watching a reality TV show. So currently, just to give you some background, like my wife and my daughters especially are hooked on the Dance Mom show. And you watch, yeah, well, get some daughters. You'll fucking you'll love it. But it's like you get to see the drama that these people just have in their life, and it's like how much everybody feeds off of it. So whenever you watch like the news and you watch what these politicians are doing, and it's like the same thing. It's like you're trying to get clicks, you know, and it's like when you have presidents who are like sending out tweets and doing all the social media thing, and it's like they have 1 million followers and blah. It's like, what are we doing with the people who are supposed to be in charge of this? We're monetizing them as an image. Like the president, what does that role even
They all
mean
watched
today?
Spaceballs and they understood it.
But it's like we're adapting to like the movie
Merchandising, bro.
Wall-E. I mean, if you look at it, we're just getting screens shoved into our face. We're getting cars that are automated. We're getting everything to take the power away from a person having an intellectual thought and questioning what's going on, to the point to where we have a society of people who are going to be in reclined chairs with a screen in their face, being taken in care of 100% by a government.
On another aspect of that, of what you just to add to what you said, another forefront in that, which is actually in a completely different category, but it all plays into it, is the fact that, like, if you look at what the rest of the world eats in other countries, and then you look at what we eat here, they intentionally, and it's all public now, and people are becoming more aware of it, but now here in America, when you look at what people eat as the regulated foods and what's on the shelves and fast food joints, shit like that, that food has been proven to actually cause brain development issues. Like, no joke, like fast food, like McDonald's, all that shit, eating that as a sustenance as a child, growing up in it, is actually causing hinderment in development of the brain, which is proven at this point. They've proved that it actually does cause overall, averagely, lower IQ percentages. Now that fluctuates, depends on how much, you know, how vigorously they're involved in it. But you look at the foods that are on the shelves here in Walmart, for instance, or Target, all of them are owned by like the same 3 companies.
Oh, you know my feeling on Walmart.
Oh, I know you do.
stuff.
But that stuff right there, did you know that food that we eat and we buy in the stores here are banned in other countries?
You know, there's a lot of things that are acceptable here in our country that are banned in other countries. I mean, it's not just like food and
Yeah, like
produce and
women
things. I mean,
driving.
well,
Yeah, well, I'm talking about on a health standard. I'm talking about this
right,
plays
but
into what you're
I'm talking about on a health standard too. I mean, it's not just food. I mean, it's
I know. I just
anything
said it
that
was
we
just one of many things.
yeah, anything that we
Just
consume
contribute.
and how it's marketed and how it's, why is it more affordable to go to the store and buy such unhealthy food rather than have stuff that is organically made? If you walk into Whole Foods and you buy 10 items, you're going to spend more than if you fill up a cart at Walmart. Why is it set that way? Why is it created to be that way? Why is the big farms, you know,
To
the
make you weak, dumb, and
Well, it's
Well,
good.
it's mass consumption. It's making people want. I mean, why do you have so many people who are obese and overweight in a country and so much waste? You have so much waste.
It started whenever, like, during World War One, they couldn't figure out how to feed the troops and their citizens. So they started making corn products, corn syrup, corn
starch.
all this
Yep.
stuff. They figured that out, and then people got really used to eating like that.
Thank you for bringing that up.
and then
I
they
was
started-
about
It's
to
all.
say
It's
that.
all you had. You know. I mean,
Exactly.
that's what
And
they
then
gave you.
And they started mass producing it, and then they started corporatizing the farms. So all the farms you have for Walmart and Target and Kroger, Tom Thumb, all these things are corporatized to where it's cheaper to afford the non-organic GMO items.
Right.
Because they're mass producing 1 billion potatoes.
But at the same time, with that, we overproduce more than we could ever consume, and we waste so much. I mean, I'm not going to spit out numbers like I know real numbers, but there's so much that is wasted because of our overconsumption. I mean, when you have a person who sits at home, weighs 700 pounds, and has food delivered to them because they can't fit out their front door, that didn't happen overnight. But when you have a mass majority of people who live in heavily dense populated areas, and they don't have any way of having these things readily and available, they're not going down to the local market to go get their groceries.
No, definitely.
They're going to the supermarket, the big conglomerate, which is everywhere, because you can stick those in the middle of nowhere and people are still going to flock to it.
So I
and
said,
you're still gonna be
I said it
profitable.
before on this podcast. Every Saturday I go to the local market in my little neighborhood town, and I buy all my vegetables and fruit from the Amish.
Yeah.
They have a huge stall open. I buy tomatoes, whatever they got, and it cost me like $25 for a week's worth of food.
But how many people don't know of that being an
Oh,
option?
nobody.
You know, I mean, because
nobody does.
But there's so much in this society. Like when I was talking to him about this topic before, you know, today and stuff, you know, it's something that picks at my brain on a daily basis because I have young children. And one thing I was never given was a proper education on how to be successful as an adult. My parents were great parents, but that was something that they never taught. It was one of those things that they had to figure out, and they never considered the idea of preparing their next generation. So it's something I think about a lot. How can I prepare my children for this world that they're going to be thrown into because of all the mistakes that have been made previous? What are they going to be looking at? You know, when I look at what my parents bought their first home for, you know, back in, say, the late 80s, early 90s, whatever it was.
$90,000.
85 grand.
Yeah,
They got
exactly.
2 acres of land and a 4-bedroom house. You know, I mean, it wasn't the best place, but at the same time, that was really cheap, you know. And I've talked to other people and the same thing. Their parents bought their houses back in the 90s, and it's this big house. And now, today, that same house is worth $500,000.
Easy.
And when you, as a young, you know, adult, like, you know, us, who is venturing out into, hey, I want to be a homeowner.
My wrinkles
I got
say otherwise.
kids.
I'm not a young adult.
But I got kids, you know, I have these responsibilities. I want to do this. I want to make this step in my life. And it's like, how much is it going to cost to do that? Jesus, like that is a ridiculous increase in overall cost for an industry not to be paying more. So like as a worker in an industry, that pay has basically leveled out and stayed the same or even dropped due to animation or automation. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely automation.
No,
But-
I was like, animation.
But automation has definitely crippled a lot of those industries and
Yeah.
collapsed a lot of those jobs. So when I look towards the future, automation is essentially free over time. As
Yeah.
long as you build it and you have it and you pay for it the once, now this thing is going to just make you money. The more that occurs in this society and we don't create an environment where people can produce and actually work to make a living to pay their bills, well, then you're going to be forced into a society where the government tells you how much you make depending on your grade. How productive and useful are you to society? Are you just an engineer worker? Or are you
If I
just
may, you mentioned how do we train our families and teach our children what our parents didn't teach us? And back to the underlying tone of what we want to talk about today is that our parents were lied to about, say, public school and education, saying that your kid will be able to learn everything that it needs to learn if it goes to our public schools. And now that we've all grown up, we realize that that shit was a fucking lie
Yeah.
to make us cronies to just follow orders
into
and guidelines.
the factory work plan, which is
Correct.
the 8 to 5.
And now that
type
we're older,
schedule.
we're like, how do we stop our kids from doing that? You shove them in private school, or you teach them at home yourself, or you teach them how to use tools and how to use their hands in the dirt and make a garden. You have to teach them that yourself nowadays.
So I'm going to have a little bit of a disagreement on there just for this simple fact of when, like, so my parents are in their mid to late 60s. So they're like that end of the baby boomer generation.
Mine are also mid 60s.
Yeah. So when I look at what they were taught in school, that 8 to 5 mentality, that factory worker mentality, that was alive, prosperous, and present
Oh, I'm talking about our generation.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So like, how I look at it is like, so when my parents had children and then they sent them to public school, well, public school benefited their generation.
Yeah, but
It
you're
set them up.
missing the point of why that was done. The point of what was done, not just because I get what you're saying, it was prosperous. I get there was an aspect of that, but the
You're-
top of the food chain, the government,
Right.
Their real plan behind it, and it's well known now, is that they didn't want people to grow up free thinking.
Right, but they've never wanted people to grow up. Long before our parents, that was already an established mindset. Is like, you have a top of the food chain. I don't care what society you live in. It's always going to be that way.
He's talking about with the public school thing. That was a little bit different. That's like, I get what you're saying.
Right, but what I was saying in my statement on the public school thing is, by the time our generation was getting out of school, automation was becoming a more adaptive thing. So it's like, when my parents sent me to public school, of course their thinking is that I'm going to get an education and I'm either going to go into working in some kind of field, or I'm going to go to college, something along those lines, because that's what they did. So by the time I got to that age, and automation took a gigantic leap. You were born in the 90s, same as I was born in the 90s, you know, the early part of it. During that time period, we saw an exponentially quick time frame of going from okay technology to holy fucking shit. We have some crazy
to fucking
well, and you gotta consider in that time frame how quickly it advanced for us. We saw it as we were getting to the approach of becoming adults. That's when smartphones were hitting. That's when all this shit was coming out, and suddenly you had access to things that you never had before. And then all of a sudden there's self-checkout lanes where you have to do all of these things before that used to be someone's job. So automation started stepping in. We were truck drivers. It stepped into that industry.
It is.
You know, I mean, you got to think of where they're going with some of these things. So when I think for my kids, my parents didn't look as to what crazy thing's going to happen when I'm an adult, because it hadn't been there yet.
Yeah.
You know, what they experienced in the 60s was like, hey, we have a party line on our phone. We just got colored TV. And then all of a sudden, by the time they're getting ready to retire and their kids are adults, they're going, damn, there's holograms? Like, this shit's real? I thought Back to the Future was just a movie.
VR,
you know, and then all of a sudden you see these things as they're happening and progressing.
I want to add something to the automation aspect with like, especially like trucks, like trucking industry. So when that started becoming more talked about back in, I want to say it was like 2012. Whenever I was probably a year and a half or a year, I think it was a year and a half having my CDL at the time, people started brought up like, oh, they're already developing self-driving trucks. And I hadn't really heard a bunch about it. And then when I looked into it at that time, because they were all trying to say like, yeah, but they never could. The mentality was by a lot of these old school truck drivers, and then even guys who were close to my age but have been doing it like 5 years longer, they were like, got a little bit more, you know, experience under their belt. They would have the you know, the same mentality, pretty much just saying like, oh, well, they wouldn't be able to, you know, use automated trucks for doing this job or this job, like going off and doing these like intricate things that you need to have someone in there. And I was like, not really. I was like, if you think about it, I was like, yeah, if they can make it do, they're only able to do this right now, give it 10 years. Now they're gonna be able to do that. Now they can do this. Like right now, they have self-driving, no one's inside of it, trucks. Like I used to haul lime slurry to construction sites, right? And you have to wiggle, like go off-road into unmapped areas, all that shit. They were using an automated truck to go navigate through a construction site for dumping some type of chemical on the ground, backing up, going around pipes that were set in the ground for like the irrigation and stuff. It's technology that's embedded in its sensors is so fucking good at this point. Like, no, like the trucking industry will diminish down to where there's no one behind a truck, and I tried telling people.
But this is technically.
I know, I'm just saying the way things are going.
But what I'm saying is that talk in that industry technically isn't new. That's the funny thing, is because on public roadways, it's new. I've worked on and off in construction for many years, and big construction companies have huge pieces of equipment that are 100% automated.
Yeah, they do. They have the same thing in the farming industry.
Yeah, I mean, you have this technology that's been around for a little bit. It's just being adapted into more and more of today's society, to the point to where you're gonna have self-driving cars. And that's where, when I make the joke about like our society being like the movie WALL-E, I assume everybody here has seen the movie. You know, you got the big heavy set people, they're all stuck in chairs, reclined back with a TV screen in front of them, and they're oblivious to what's going on around them. We are like head first going into that, in my opinion, like not even thinking about it.
I think everybody knows that. I think a lot of remotely level-headed people already know that.
But how many of those people really are there in comparison to the masses of people who are going to be those? How quickly could the people who are
America's a bunch of
remotely
fat fucks.
aware, like going, that
Yeah.
I see where this is headed. I don't like it.
you can take, for example, cell phones, right? Our parents probably didn't get a cell phone right away. They probably waited a while to get to it, and then they probably never barely used it. Probably just left it on the counter when they went to work, or probably just left it somewhere. Eventually, they started using it more and more. It's going to be in that regard, right? Like,
Yep.
they're going to get an automated system and be like, it works. And then they're going to not ever use it. And then they're going to use it a little bit and a little bit. And then they're going to be so reliant on that thing working that that's all they'll ever know.
I honestly,
Well, think about when the toaster oven first came around.
Exactly.
Hey, I really think though, with us being at where we are in our modern time, when new technology starts coming out, it's already showing itself. A lot of the technology is coming out to where you don't have the option now to really, I got this new cell phone, like I'm just gonna set on the counter, I don't really want to mess with it. No, the stuff that's coming out now and the way our integral system of our society is working, it's forcing you to have to use this technology.
Well,
They're not going to be able to just set it down.
So yeah, that's what I was going to get to, like the microchip that Elon Musk is trying to introduce into society.
He's gone
The
a long
Neuralink?
way with-
Where
yeah.
we probably won't get it. Our generation, I would say probably about 30% of our generation will probably get it.
I don't want to get it.
But then our children will probably get it whenever they're old enough to get it.
Hell no.
Well, eventually the government will mandate it.
Yes.
It'll be part of your social
Exactly.
security number. It'll be part of your credit score.
So
If you want to go make a new auto purchase and you're like, hey, I need to go buy a car. All right, well, go ahead and just, put your thumbprint on here. It's not working.
Just wave your wrist over it.
Yeah, it's not, I figure, a fingerprint is going to be such a self-identifier, like, okay, do that. Now you just paid for your groceries.
Can I make one comment? And it's just an overall statement just about because I know that this episode is about the rise and fall.
Actually, it'll probably just be like a facial scan, right? Like they'll have this camera on the register.
Maybe
and
they
they'll
won't
scan your
even need
face and
it.
boom.
Maybe it's just going to be GPS
Yeah.
tracked. It'll just link up real quick, and you just do whatever inside your mind to tell it, hey,
Yeah.
yes, I want to accept
hey,
this
done.
purchase.
Done.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you that this prevents identity
I've talked about the
theft.
Neuralink
Whoa.
a bazillion times. Like I know what you're talking about.
But talking in general to like
Hold on
just
a
the
second.
adapt.
What I was trying to say for everyone just to interrupt me because no one knows how to just wait until someone talks.
Well, I mean, we're just enjoying ourselves.
Fuck off.
Wait, I want to say something.
No, you don't, motherfucker. So, I know we're supposed to be talking about the lack of trust in politicians and like all that stuff, which is what those notes are for. The other aspect of this topic was the whole rise and fall of America, which we've been talking about, things that contribute to that, right? Well, I want to just say it as a fact, or just as not a fact, a statement, and I think everyone can agree with it, is the fact that if you're not going to listen to this whole entire podcast, whoever listens to it, at least take this one thing away since we're not saying it at the end, is that throughout history, empires grow, they get established, they get too strong, and eventually they crumble. And it's literally been the cycle throughout every single country or every single major
Empire.
Ooh.
empire ever throughout in history, no matter
Can I
what.
tell you where the cycle
So-
ends? So like
Jesus?
the medieval era, they had the Enlightenment, and then they hit the Dark Ages, and then it ended. Same thing with the Romans. They had their Renaissance, and then they had their Dark Ages, and then it ended.
Mhm.
We are in the Dark Ages right now.
You think so?
I guarantee.
I think we're at the beginning of the Dark Ages.
No. We've passed the Enlightenment and all that stuff already.
Listen, dude, I'd rather be the guy who waits until after the fact so I can do like Captain Hindsight and be like, we were in the Dark Ages back then.
Well, so when do you
Like, you know
think
what I mean?
when do you think our enlightenment was?
So I think it was like the 70s and the 80s is when
Why?
why?
Yeah,
That's
why?
when people started to become more aware of society in general. Like they began more free from the government, more away from the government, and that's typically when somebody is like that culture is related to the Enlightenment, if you will. The Renaissance is when people have more power, and they may not have more power, but they feel like they do. So that was in the 70s and 80s when they're like, fuck the government, we're not going to Vietnam, we're not doing this stuff. They felt powerful.
Yeah,
And now the government's like, you've had your turn. Our
that's
turn."
right around the time of Jim Crow and
Exactly
everything
right.
like that.
Exactly
so.
right. So they're like, you've had your fun, now it's our turn. Here's a bunch of technology, here's a bunch of this shit, that shit. Shut the fuck up, sit down.
They needed to find a way to control the masses.
And they have. And so
Calm them down.
I think that we are in the dark ages of society right now to where it's going to be
So how
a huge
would
turning
you-
point.
How long would you
Would
say
you
that
just
the
as
Dark
this-
Ages last, though? I mean,
They
'cause-
last about 400 years.
So
Are you talking about,
this would
like,
be
as
the
the
beginning.
society?
This would be the
Wait,
beginning.
fair.
So,
Yeah.
Are you meaning like, as this, like, because the last thing you said before you guys started, whatever you just said. Sorry, I was really fixed on what
He's not paying attention
sorry,
at
I
all.
was really fixed
Dude
on what he
checked
just
out.
said because you said like how it deals with society. Well, do you think it's really on a society level, or do you think it's more of a technology-based society level?
So it usually,
You know what I mean?
It usually has a hand in hand, but it's usually with technology. So in
Yeah.
the medieval era, the Dark Ages specifically, they said that peasants were the useless fucking grunts. These motherfuckers were drinking, having a good old time, doing nothing, barely working. They're having a blast, and that's what they want our society to do now. They don't want you to go to work. They want you to stay home. They want you to
I'll be the first
be
one.
watching TV.
So
Yeah.
my question, we can all agree that it feels like our government is leading us down this road, like they're trying to get us somewhere during this process, whatever they're trying to implement, whatever they're trying to change, whatever they're trying to get us addicted to that we can't live without. Like imagine not having your cell phone all day long. You know, imagine how just that would just could drive someone nuts so quickly. You know, something so what you'd think is minuscule is so important to an everyday life. Where are they trying to get us to? What's their purpose, and what do you think their end goal is? Because like if we're talking about the downfall of this country, just like you've stated, every empire has one. You know, just like you expressed, you know, you have the Enlightenment and then the Dark Ages. You know, if we're in this, if this is what we're dealing with right now, you know, we have the opportunity to explain this to the masses and tell them what our opinions are and hear other opinions from that. There's got to be an end goal in mind. What is their end goal? You know, what are they trying to get it? To me, it's a population control, because if you can control the masses, just like COVID, if you release COVID, right, and you know that this isn't meant to kill a lot of people, but you want to really sell that shit like it could. Like, everyone's going to fucking die if you get it. You got to really listen to us, people. This is dangerous. And then everyone freaks the fuck out and they comply. And you go, okay, how many didn't? How many people didn't comply? Okay, these are the areas that didn't comply very well. Everybody else we can control pretty fucking quickly through fear. So fear tactic, good on these guys. How do we get these ones to either comply or eliminate them? What do we do in regards to that? What do we need? And then you come up with a full strategy as to how you can go, okay, get rid of these guys because we know they're going to be a problem. Control these ones. We have all the power in the world at this point. We control their food, their money, everything. We're going to force them to get a Neuralink. We're going to force them to have all this so we can track and monitor everybody. You step out of line, and then you have, I mean, you could essentially have a one world government that is in total control because you know who's going to listen.
Ooh, that's a rich other topic.
I think the end goal is obsolescence of the self. They don't want you to have a id self. They don't want you to have that.
Right.
So they want to completely dismantle the idea of Ben, of Evan. So you know that like
People such as us,
Socialism.
yes, they don't.
no, not necessarily us in general,
But
right?
I'm
no
just
one heard
speaking.
that, did they?
So you
I
said
heard socialism. Yeah. But
yeah, goddamn cuck.
But I do think people such as us are targets to them, because I know for a fact myself, like if someone showed up on my property and was telling me what the new rules were and forcing me to comply, bad day for that guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's
Goddamn
that's
right.
just how the occurrence is going to be. So, you know, a big target area like Texas, say this government decides, okay, now's the time. And I don't think it's just our government. I think it's in cahoots with every other major, you know, power inside the world to do this. I mean, otherwise COVID would have been a targeted thing here. It wouldn't have been a global thing. You know, that's like doing trials, you know. It's like,
Yeah, you
okay, we
should
started on mice, now
you
we're going to
should
move it up to
see-
people.
If anyone, this is just an announcement, not to you guys, but for any listener, if about the whole COVID thing, if you want to see some wild shit, go look up news broadcasts in other countries about COVID. Like, because they're public. Before, when COVID was going on, you could try to search for a broadcast from other news organizations in other countries, and it was extremely filtered. You like almost couldn't find really any.
Just go watch the Plandemic documentaries.
yeah, like
be
yeah,
completely
that,
honest.
Have you
but I'm
yeah.
just saying, if you watch it, dude, it is wild in comparison to what we were getting in our media here about what's going on and what COVID really does, and then you look at what it's saying in other countries. Like, dude, it is wild. The polarity between the two.
But look how
like-
well they have control. Have you guys seen that video? I know y'all have, but and it shows all the different news
stations
broadcasts and they're
saying
all
the
saying
same thing.
So that raised a red flag across everybody's TikTok feed, because that's where most people saw it, was on TikTok.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh my God, share. So many people saw that. It's like, wow, this was the script that they just, this one person typed this up. It was a Friday at like 4:35, and he was like, fuck it. I'm sending this to everyone. No time to send out individuals to individuals.
I can't.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
well, so I was going to say, like, so you look at something like that and you have enough people alone in this country who are like, they're fucking tricking us, man. They're getting us. We know it's happening. All right, got to go back to work. See you guys later. And then they just, and it's like they have such control right now over the populace that when you're like, oh, I fucking knew it. I knew they did it. Ah.
Yeah.
All right, my break's over.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's done.
Yeah,
you don't even question
See,
how you would change that in this society.
This type, like what you're talking about, like this narrative, I have thought so much about this type of shit that like my conspiracy brain can't help it.
That's why we're all here. Is 'cause
And I,
Yeah,
so let me share this with you. So I believe personally, there's a part of me that deep down on my conspiracy side believes that all the shit we see, sorry,
Refill.
oh yeah, you could just ask out loud. It's like, I want another beer, please. Anyways,
you need another beer?
yes, please. But
You can grab
this is brought to you, sponsored by Guinness. We're gonna keep doing this until they sponsor
Until they
us.
fucking actually get
Yeah,
this one.
sponsored by Guinness. We're your number one supplier.
Some supplier. Yeah, we supply.
We supply you,
beer.
bitch. Anyways, but I can't help. There's a part of in the back of my head, my conspiracy side always, like when I see all this stuff, like the TikTok thing you mentioned,
Yeah.
all this stuff. I believe all of these things, like instances like that, where all of a sudden there's the videos going out of TikTok. I believe that because the government is so good, they have been practicing psyops since basically the 40s or before that. The paper trail only goes really back to like 1946.
Hold on, if I may. Conspiracies? Fuck that term.
No, conspiracy. The term conspiracy does not mean it's not true.
That's actually
It
a
means
good
people are
term.
conspiring.
It's what they wanted people to think a conspiracy
Yeah.
theorist was.
So you are smart enough to think for yourself is all that it is.
Yeah.
You see the information, you take it in, you're like, that's fucking wrong.
But if someone calls you a
Yeah.
conspiracy theory, it means you're a quack.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So-
fuck conspiracy.
Okay.
You just think for
Then,
yourself.
all right, my personal thoughts.
Yeah.
I have a personal thought that believes that. Thank you. Thanks, Evan. My personal thoughts is that they are so good, and the reason I bring up the psyop thing is because they are so fucking good about it. They are so good at it. They're not even just good. They're perfect. They can do whatever. They know how to subscribe. They know how to implement and do things now to any person, with the human brain and with psychology, all this shit. They know it so well now that I believe that things like that, where you see the TikTok come up with all the news people, some news media saying something over here, some person who's a whistleblower of some other thing that the government's doing with some corrupt thing, like, Pizzagate, whatever the fuck you want to call
Or
it.
the green laser in
Yeah.
Antarctica.
Yeah. I believe it's all orchestrated. There's a
100%.
personal thought that they are behind all that information getting out, and it's 100% intentional to always pretty much make it to where no one can ever get unified.
So-
because if you get, it's like the movie, what, Bug's Life, right? It's just,
Okay.
you're the grasshoppers, we're the ants, and we got to figure out,
Gotta
like,
keep the ants in control.
we gotta listen to the dude who's all like, he's like, yeah, you see him in conspiracy, not really, he's just an inventor, but in the movie he's an inventor, right? But it's like, in reality, that's just one of the conspiracy guys who's actually spitting some facts, and they breed you to make you not believe any of that shit,
Well,
and then you'll have all this mixing, conflicting shit.
Just to
It's a
build
bug's
off
life,
of-
dude. We are living a bug's life.
Just to build off of what you said,
I
like
would
I
fuck
do
up a
believe
grasshopper,
that
though.
this information is 100% them putting it out there. Who would think, what individual would hear enough of those broadcasts from all those news stations to go, oh my God, that sounds exactly the same. Let me pull all these feeds together. It's going to be somebody who's knows to look for
They
this.
made it, right?
Yeah. So you take this information, you take the information that they're pushing out in front of you intentionally for you to see, and they're doing it to be like, definitely don't trust the government. You don't want to do that.
Don't
And then
trust
they're
the
going to
government.
turn around and be like,
Trust
us, but they're doing it to two different people, because they're going to these people over here and being like, don't trust them. They're going after your money. They're going after your livelihood. And then they're going to this group over here and they're going, they made that video. Those guys are fucking crazy. Don't listen to them.
Well,
We got you. We would never do that.
Goes with what
You know,
you're saying is
but
American Ultra.
but you make a divide. You make a divide amongst the people in this country. You either gotta be blue or you gotta be red.
Or you're nothing.
Which one? Which one? And if you go, well, I'm just kind of independent, a free thinker kind of mindset, and they're just like blue or red.
Wait a second.
Well,
You have to
I'm
choose.
green.
You
I'm
gotta
green.
choose.
You
The
know.
reason why I said MK Ultra is because with MK Ultra, a lot of people don't know this. It seems, because I've come across people talk about MK Ultra and they miss some of the biggest fucking like knowledge bombs about it. It's the fact that they weren't just doing it to people that inside of a closed space and fucking with. They were doing it to people who they didn't know it was being done to.
Oh yeah.
In their day to day, like they were intentionally targeting people at homes. Like they could have been targeting me. Like if I lived back then, I could have been one of the people. You could have been one of the people, and you would have never known that that's why you were losing your shit, because they were doing shit to your head.
But they still do today.
Oh, I know. They have other tag. Like I said, they're perfectionists.
with all that being said, if y'all saw that video of all those news broadcasters talking the same thing
It's
at the
fake, I
same
made
time, and you don't want to watch that stuff anymore, please listen to people like us or other individuals and share it around to everybody that you listen to, because
full disclosure, we're all kind of retarded.
we're trying our best here to give you some actual knowledge and some actual stuff out there in the world.
Well, we're trying to give you a different view and different set of opinions, because, you know, you got to imagine you're a lonely person sitting at home and you're on your phone most of the day. You know, say you don't really have a big friend list, you're more introverted, I think it's called.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and you're just that type of person. So like the information that you consume is going to be just whatever people are telling you. You know, this is what it's going to revolve around. So it's like you see this, it's like that person who doesn't go outside of this device right here in their hands and what it tells them is going to be guided left or right. They're going to be sent down that depending on the information that's pushed in front of them. And they're not going to look at the other side. They're not going to form individualized opinions. They're just going to go, this must be true because this is what everything on here says, because it's guided to only show me this part of it. I don't see the gray over here on the other opinions. I only see this. So
yeah,
that
if you
person
found-
becomes very
If you found your way
morally.
here, share it to everybody.
All right, can I say something?
Show your
There's
grandma
something
your
actually
dog.
it has to do exact, because you made me think of it just now.
You're welcome.
Everything you thanks, bro. Everything are you the government? Anyways, so
He's in your brain.
I'm gonna bring up a controversial
this
figure who went down in flames in court in the past couple years due to making one fuck up, one bad projection of things, and that's Alex
Anthony
fucking
Weiner.
Jones.
I was close.
Oh,
I don't
the-
give a shit what you think of
the
Alex
Sandy
Jones.
Hook shooting?
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I am personally now, because I have over the past, I want to say at least 2 years, I have on and off dove into Alex Jones and everything surrounding him with Sandy Hook, and then all this stuff. The reason I'm bringing him up is because personally, I think that was an orchestrated event. Not Sandy Hook. I'm talking about him getting the wrong information, because the information he went off of were from legit trusted sources, and he showed that in court. All the information he displayed was actually from verified fucking sources, but it was all lies though that was given to him.
Yeah.
So like the reason I say that is because Alex Jones is probably the biggest name in the forefront for literally divulging actual information of shit that actually happens that people didn't know about,
Right, but
from the 90s to now, and he was right
But
about
they did
all of it.
exactly what they do to anybody who
I know.
is someone like that, to where it's like, you're the public figurehead. We have to make you look and discredit you instantly.
Yeah.
Because if you do have some form of information, we need to give you disinformation so that you look like a fool and no one trusts what you have to say. Because if you have too big of a mass following of people who go, you know what? I am starting to question some things.
Yep.
The government's going to go, wait, motherfucker, you're on our team. You don't go over to the other side and go, well, they have a better deal over there. No, this isn't how that works.
Yep.
We're going to discredit that guy as much as possible. Now, there's no verification to that I have that I can show and document, but knowing some of what Alex Jones has put out in the past, and he's a very controversial individual to begin with, but you can't hold that against him whenever he's able to produce factual evidence, which he's done a lot.
Oh,
I mean, if you're gonna reprimand this individual for spitting misinformation one time, why the hell is NBC in existence?
CNN,
Why is CNN in existence? Why is any of these businesses still? Because they do it on a daily basis, and whenever they do it, they don't apologize.
They're on the
they don't
payroll.
get put in court. They just go, huh, we got it wrong, guys.
Next story.
Tomorrow we're going to talk about something different, so don't even fucking worry about it.
Because the people who run the media stations, it's all the same people.
Well,
They own all of them.
Well, it's
Like,
just
it's the
it's
same
just like
person.
it's just like a private individual, a billionaire, Jeff Bezos, owning his own newspaper. I would like to see it say something bad about him or Amazon. I would love to.
It never would.
It did though. At one point in time when he first purchased it, one of their people went on there and like made an article basically talking about the hours, wages, and conditions of working in an Amazon facility, and that fucking person was reprimanded
I
and
do
fired.
remember that actually.
Yeah, you know, so it's like it's not an equal thing, because why should you care if that's what's going on inside of your business? You should be going, holy shit, I didn't know about this. Honestly, you're the CEO, you're the guy who runs and created the whole thing. I'm not going to expect you to, but you now know about it. Now you can go down throughout your company and go, where the fuck is this happening and how do we fix it? But no, let's not do that. Let's say, hey, fuck you for finding that out.
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to tell people that that was going on. I own this paper. Right, but you also told me I'm supposed to be a journalist and produce facts and news.
Yeah.
This was news.
I
not
need
that kind of
to make
news.
Yeah, don't fucking make me look bad. What's wrong with you?
I need to
Go
make
after FedEx.
a disclaimer. That's it. Disclaimer. So when I brought up Alex Jones, I'm only doing this for the listeners. When I brought up Alex Jones, I'm not saying for a fact that he was given, false information. I'm not taking any kind of permanent saying something as a fact. But what I can say is that if you look into it yourself and you followed the court case, everything to a T, and got the transcripts from the court that he went through the Sandy Hook thing, and you look at everything prior to that, everything like as one big fucking sandwich and go through each layer of it, 100% the conclusion I guarantee you will come to as well is that was a setup. It was blatantly obvious when you can step back, hindsight.
How misinformation happens is simply like his brother-in-law could have told him like, hey man, I heard from Joe down the street that this was the situation. He went, oh shit, turn the camera on and repeat.
Yeah,
that is still
Jones
misinformation.
doesn't do that.
I know. Obviously, I'm not saying that Alex
really
Jones
bad
does that. But what I'm saying
That's
is
like, ugh.
in
It's
the
like
same
eating a
in the same
mustard
scenario, that's how easily misinformation can spread. It's kind of like being in a group of 30 people and whisper something into that person's ear and see what it ends up being by the time it gets to the last person. You know what I mean?
It's the worst game of telephone around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking on to the still on the topic, obviously we've been talking about everything about the rise and fall in America, and I think obviously all of this contributes into that narrative. However, I know we've touched on some things that would obviously go into the realm of not trusting politicians and Congress and all
The
that
late
stuff.
50s, early 60s was a fucking turning point.
Yeah, it really was. That's why I started there, because that's like the bigger highlights that were like more well known now.
That's where Yuri Bezmenov came into effect, right?
Yep, ex-KGB informant.
Yeah.
Yep, which I don't know if you know about him or not.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, he pretty much said like, there's
This
4
isn't-
steps to how America is going to get ruined, and Russia's doing it. And it's like disinformation, desensitization.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
All
Yeah.
these things, and we're on the 4th step right now.
And in
It's
his
like,
thing was
we're
making
fucked.
people had to do
Yeah, they
with
succeeded.
Yeah.
yeah, and one of the things in the steps was the whole pushing narrative, because he was sent Yuri was sent over to India and a couple of other places to learn the ways of essentially
So-
like guru shit.
So let me tell you
Because
guys,
it's all
since
a
you
bunch
did the
of
research
nonsense
on
primarily.
this guy from that time period and our
he
current,
also said that people would not know if they're a boy or a girl.
Yeah, that they would become transhumans.
Yeah, they would become to the point where they would be gender confused and like all this stuff. He was saying this shit in the 70s. Said this was how it
he said it in like 54.
Oh, yeah, was it 50? I thought his interview, the interview I watched was in the 70s.
Yeah, the interview that was posted was in 61.
Yes.
And he mentioned it in 54 to some journalists, and they were like, "You're fucking crazy."
Yeah, and
He's
then
like,
he
"I'll
got to
go
do
on
the
TV."
interview.
Fuck.
So it got implemented in the 50s.
Yeah.
So
and he said that within 20 years from the interview he did in the live recorded one, that it would be basically mid 2000s to late 2010s. That's where the gender confusion would really take hold, and that's exactly what fucking happened.
So with your research on this, what is their end goal? What are they trying to accomplish?
Their end goal is to end governmental reliance. They don't want us to go to our government, trust our government, anything of that sort.
What do they accomplish through that?
Rise of communism.
Yeah.
Controlled dictatorship.
So that would mean that they're already in
and
cahoots.
look what's happening now.
Well, that would mean they're already in cahoots with our government to do this.
Well,
so that would mean that it's not just a Russian. Well, how are you going to have a communist control over a country?
They're just as good at psyops as.
Well,
right, but hold on. What I'm trying to say is, like, you look at the current conflict that's going on with Russia and Ukraine. This is obviously well thought out, well planned. It's bankrupting us, which is going to help Russia in return. So if you have some kind of cahoots with, you know, this other government to try and create it to be a fascist, you know, regime over here and have that control, I'm just trying to see what benefit.
I know you.
How would Russia create a communist control in our
comment
country?
About the
you know?
Ukraine war? Because I can give some info on that. So the Ukraine war, 100% we are responsible for. The Russia, this is all public. Everyone can look this shit up. But we violated tons of peace treaties. Well,
that's well known. That's
what Russia has been saying for.
Well, but we weren't supposed to make Ukraine part of NATO.
Yes,
that was a huge part of it.
And then we put weapons, missile systems and shit.
Well,
right there.
Well, I can't remember what year it was, but it's like we were putting Ukraine into NATO, and there was already threats like, "Don't fucking do this. You're not going to put a military establishment that close to us. You're not going to have, you know, any kind of weapons
and no like influence that. On."
Well, because the way Russia viewed Ukraine is it's like that's still part of us, you know, like they can call themselves whatever the fuck they want, but you know, at the same time, and Ukraine's not innocent. Anybody who's like, Ukraine is just a beautiful version of Russia.
Thank you for saying that, because I felt like I was the only, I know me and you have talked about it.
It's been one of the most corrupt countries in the world for fucking ever.
Did you hear Rosie O'Donnell on the news the other day ranting and yelling about Ukraine?
No.
She's Ukrainian.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't know she was.
And like, she hot mic'd and she was like, that fucking place is insane. There's Nazis everywhere. They're killing people.
Well, it's a very corrupt country.
Yeah,
like,
it's okay. I shared a video on Facebook, like, and I will put it up on the podcast in the link for the video, unless it's been taken down. But I have a video of Ukrainian soldiers killing an innocent woman and child, and then going, "Oh shit," and then they just took the baby and yeeted it into the fucking forest. They literally just yeeted it so no one could see it, like literally yeeted the bitch. Like they took a baby that they just murdered in cold blood. There was no soul. I
heard you the first time. It still hurts my heart. I don't know why you got to repeat
it. I'm emphasizing it because it's a big deal, man. Like for me, it just pisses me off, and I feel like when I say it, it's just not enough. Like I want to punch something, you know. So I'm punching with my words.
But you gotta look at it in the sense of like,
fuck all of them.
Russia is a fucked up place to begin with, and the thing is they're not dumb. You know, it's not like a violent colony of cannibals who are uneducated. Right? You know, you're talking about people who are very well educated, have been for centuries. You know, and they're morbid human beings. They just don't think the way we do about life and about society and things of that nature, you know. And there's plenty of them that do. I'm not saying all of Russians are just these horrible fucking minded. I mean, they're poverty driven communist country. It's kind of like saying that, you know, China has great people in it, but it's got some fucked up people who are telling them what to do. You know, it's like
I know we could probably go. I'm gonna try to redirect this. I know we could go on and on about this, but
my original question was, what is Russia's goal out of this? Did he say what their intentions were?
Yuri Bezmenov specifically was saying that it wasn't necessarily about communism; it was about destroying the enemy.
Yes.
So
sorry, that was
what they wanted was an uprising. So it was like desensitization, uprisings. Cancelization of media, and then like complete transhumanism, and like complete like
break them from the inside.
That was the initial conversation I had with you about this topic for this podcast, was exactly that, and that was why it was labeled like, when is the downfall going to happen?
I'm not sure if I remembered it correctly or said it like perfectly, but his like he like detailed said what the plan is, what the structure is, and if we don't stop it, we're fucked. And
So-
we didn't stop it.
And well, that's the thing, is we didn't stop it, and now you look at society today, and we have this gigantic debt that we're never going to be able to pay back, and we just keep adding to
Yeah, yeah.
with every bailout that we offer to everyone but us. And then you include the lack of trust in the government. People are poor and getting poorer. You know, people are not, it's not like the economy's getting better, it's getting harder to survive in it.
They want you to
And
stay poor,
and if
right?
you're not an influencer or, you know, somebody of value, well, then you just don't survive very well. You have to struggle your entire life, and you got to work yourself to death. So that uprise is what I'm kind of referring to, in that, like, when does this happen? Because I know it's going to happen in our society.
So,
I don't believe it's going to be after us.
I've talked about this a few times with Ben. There's several different instances that in the next 10 to 15 years
See, and that's the time frame I was thinking.
is when America and the world will itself fall apart.
Yeah.
So there's something called, like, I think
China 2040 plan.
I think it was called, like,
no, it's a real thing.
I don't know why you had to, you just gave me a look like it's real.
Do you remember something like the fourth coming, or like the third coming, something like that, where it was like not.
Man, I was like,
I was gonna say that's every time I get to. Every time. It's a third and fourth, man.
I was like, I'm just trying to get to the fifth. I'm like, I'm trying.
I'm trying to break records in the bedroom, you know? Like, let's go.
Boys, y'all could do more than one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude, I recover in like 30 seconds.
I gotta go to the doctor, baby. I got two, and I'm
You need to get some TRT, bro. Start hitting the gym, do a lot of squats. Help.
See, when I know it's about to happen, I just fucking force all the blood to go to one area. That
Dude, I
thing
did the
stays
opposite.
rock
I stuck
solid.
it all in.
I can see you making a tourniquet of your whole upper body just so when you sit down, you're like, fuck yeah, bro.
Never going down.
Oh, dude, I keep my semen in me.
You went and robbed a Botox stand, and you have little Botox injections, so the moment you start going limp, you just inject your dick. It's like eggplants, let's go.
Hell yeah.
Ben, we know you're all balls and no dick over there.
You know what, man?
Kindle.
You know what, man? It's true.
He came in so aggressive, like, I don't have a defense against that, okay?
Listen, dude,
Hurt my feelings.
that was way too on the ball. Like, it was literally on the balls.
We have I think all three of us have had this conversation, or at least me and you have. I've had this conversation with both of you on several occasions over the
What's
years.
the conversation?
Is that
Ben has no dick.
I have the biggest. We have the biggest. We have really big wieners because if you take the girth and the circumference, like going from the gooch, like going up from the chode area, like the taint.
It's the same thing.
To the
Three different
geometry
names.
of it, like
Wait,
the circumference.
from your butthole.
Yeah, dude. I try to use. I look at
It's 30 inches, dude.
bro. I tried to.
Like packing a 12er, baby.
I learned a lot from the Taurus model, okay?
Fuck
And I see
off.
how
So
everything
he sees it
wraps
just circling
around.
from his asshole to his dick
Yeah,
hole.
dude.
He goes over his head down, so it's like 5 feet, dude.
Let's just say my balls are big enough that if I did get ball cancer, I would totally be like Randy from South Park when he's bouncing on his nuts. I'm pretty sure I could pull that off.
That was a change.
So the forthcoming
From how
Forthcoming was
we were measuring dick size from the taint to how big his balls were.
and that's how the Earth ended. That's the end of society. They're talking about, like, there was like cataclysmic events like Titanic, World War I, World War II, and then everything was peace.
Titanic.
I'm just fucking.
That's not cataclysmic.
I'm just saying, like, events, right? Like real known world events. World War I, World War II, peace. Yada 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 yada, peace. Then now we're at a stage of like Iraq War, Middle Eastern War.
But we've never really
peace,
stopped
and
being
then-
at war. That's what our country thrives on, is being at war. I mean, if you look at the timeline of America and how many conflicts we've been in, like, we go from conflict to conflict. We're in one now. We're like, hey, a couple of years ago, we're gonna get out of Iraq. We're done with this. We're done with Afghanistan. We're getting out, pulling everybody out. And then it was like, Ukraine, what's going on, man?
You know that meme of
You got some shit going on?
of the black guy behind the tree rubbing his hands?
Yeah, you
I
know.
saw Ukraine like that.
Ukraine's like, what's going on, bro? I heard you got some extra money.
Y'all got oil?
Bro, the invitation that was spot on.
But that's That's literally what it is. We stay in conflict because we profit off conflict, because we don't do
Yeah.
anything in America anymore.
Honestly, that's America's line
But
of
the
business.
political side of it
is war.
conquers. Like, the
I really
people
think so.
in this country suffer because we got rid of all the industries, and we just help support all these other smaller, weaker entities around us,
Yeah,
as
like-
long as they provide us shit.
Please
Give
send
us-
us food and
Yeah,
toys.
give us all of
Like,
these
yeah.
things. And if you got a problem with somebody, like, we're the mobster coming to collect money every week at the bodega.
Would you
know, like,
be the
showing.
guy who's getting the money collected from?
No, but what happens to that mobster?
Just-
Have you ever seen a mobster be 90-some years old, like just retiring on a porch in a rocking chair? No. Dude gets shot in the back of the fucking head.
they get killed.
We're America going around acting like we're a fucking top dog, and there's another top dog right around the corner who's ready to put a bullet in the back of our head and be the new reigning champ.
it's the
And the
aliens.
people down here, because when you talk about who's the actual mobster in that scenario, it's not us people living in this country. It's the people in charge. So somebody takes that guy out and then decides they're the new reigning champ. Well, now we have to obey them
You
and
know,
their rules, and they're more fucked up than
I
the
know-
people we had and we didn't like.
Sorry,
Oh, it's fucked up.
this kind of has something to do with it, but at the same time, it's somewhat separate. But you mentioned earlier, and then what you just said, how you mentioned like a one world government type thing. It made me think of the new world government type stuff that everyone has talked about for a long fucking time.
Yeah, New
right?
World Order.
And they're like, oh, it's about to happen, or whatever. I think it happened a long time ago. I think it happened whenever we discovered when we made the atom bomb. I think it happened at that point. Because at that point,
think
that was where the major shift happened.
So
Around the world.
we've been talking real negative shit, right? We've been talking really upsetting things.
Have we though? I thought this was pretty cool.
I mean,
I'm pretty happy.
I mean, we're having a good time.
Listen,
right?
dude, I'm not in a war-torn country.
But-
I'm not fucking like scrounging
Yeah.
through the streets.
I'm not starving. Yeah, exactly. So, like, that was tight.
tight, bro.
We've been saying rough things, right? Like, the world's ending. Like, there's war. People are dying. Shit like this. Like, we've lost our sense of control. We're all gonna be Wall-E fucking fat bastards rolling around chairs. What are y'all doing in regards to not letting this happen in
I work
your
out.
day-to-day life?
What am I doing as an individual?
Yeah.
Same as everybody else. Absolutely nothing. And well, when I
I
think
love
when
the honesty.
when I say it, what I mean by that is, like, I'm doing nothing into regards as to the society as a whole, because I don't have a large enough answer or populace to speak to and get enough, I guess, enough people on board with trying to make a good positive difference. Now, when it comes to what I do inside of my own home with my own children and what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to retain the values that were embedded in me when I was a child by my parents that were positive. You know, instead of looking at, oh, my childhood had negative aspects of it. Okay, I had a mom and a dad who was there and who loved and took care of me. Was it perfect and great? Absolutely not. But what can I educate my children to be the best survivors that they can in this world? Because that's all we're going to be, is survivors. That's all we're trying to be, whether you work a CEO corporate job or whether you work at the supermarket or whatever it may be. That's all you're trying to do, is survive at your pace, at your level, at your desire to survive in this world. So I want to raise my kids to be the free thinkers and the go-getter achiever mindset of, I'm going to go and take care of me. And whenever I get married and I have children, I'll take care of them. I'm going to do those things, you know, because that is my goal. I can't focus on the populace until the populace is ready to focus on the populace. I right now am ready to have those conversations with this entire country about what are we going to do to fix this problem, because the people we have in power aren't fixing the fucking problem. And we're not doing anything other than arguing about the ridiculous crap that they're telling us to argue about, while the major things are not being discussed with the people who are paying for it. Why is it we gave 6.2 or 6.3 billion dollars extra to Ukraine on accident? And then we just said, you know what, just hold on to it for future, you know, for future needs.
It was no accident.
Of course it's not an accident. No one makes a fucking accounting error of $6.2
Dude, that was
billion dollars.
awesome. You went on this fucking rant that I hope we clip that shit. That was fucking awesome.
That part is, I was thinking the same thing, because I was just like, no, Ben, you're gonna turn your brain off and you're just gonna watch.
Well,
That was awesome.
Yeah.
I think that people need to be willing to accept that we have to be held responsible for the change that we want to see. When we separated from England and did that, you know, centuries ago, it's not like one person led the charge alone and got us here. It was a masses of people who said, you know what, we have to do this for our next generation.
But it started with one person, right? It started with somebody who had an idea.
But did it start with one, or did it start with a group and then that group spread that word?
Well, it always starts with one. Look at Charles Manson. He had one person, and then he
But it
got
didn't
other
start with Charles
individuals.
Manson. It started with MK Ultra.
Well, then
And it started with them putting that into him. So you're again talking about individuals who were getting him to go be a puppet for them. So at the same time, again,
Well, the Charles Manson one, that's a
again,
I guess it's a bad example.
that's a hop, skip, and
one
beat.
person can make a difference. One person is not going to be able to lead the sole charge. Everyone gives credit to George Washington for the founding of this country and everything, but no one talks about how many people he had to help assist him along the way, who weren't just soldiers and footmen. They were intellectuals and
scientists,
idealists
philosophers.
and people who were telling him, like, this is what we need. We need to gather together and come up with what rules we need to have for a society, because you're not the same person as I am.
But that's what I'm trying to get at. It takes with one person to then get a group of like-minded individuals together as a group.
And that's what we need.
Yeah, that's the idea, right? So as I raise my girlfriend's son together, I sort of preach the idea of you're never alone. You need to find like-minded individuals, and you need to think for yourself and plan for the future with others.
So, and the thing
Oh.
about that, like, so one thing I will say that I hope that people start to understand the difference of is what a like-minded individual is.
So it's hard to determine, right?
Well, because if it's not a like-minded individual who just shares all the same beliefs and views that you do, because then that's so similar in comparison that you'd never have any kind of
that's what I was
debate.
about to add on.
You know, but somebody who is like-minded in the sense of willing to have conversation and going to be able to accept that you have a difference of opinion and that they have a difference of opinion, and that I'm not always going to agree with you, but I'm always going to accept what you have to say, because you have just as much authority to have your opinion as I do mine.
It starts with love, right? You have to enjoy that person in general,
Exactly.
right?
I don't think
Yeah.
you have to enjoy that person. I don't think so one bit.
Well, I mean,
But I think, if you're both that type of person, you would. Though.
If the
Exactly, that's what I'm
if the
saying.
preliminary is you have to have that much adoration for somebody, then no one would ever be able to get through anything. Look at what's happening right now. Like, people are fucking idiots.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that at one bit.
Because again, because
I don't
that
believe it
person
at
that
all.
you consider an idiot, someone else considers intellectual.
I know.
Because but you can't tolerate the
No,
conversation.
no. I'm not saying I can't tolerate them. I'm saying I'm someone who I can sit down and have a conversation. Like, for instance, I could have a conversation with someone who's like a super trans activist right now. They won't want to talk to me. I don't love them. I don't have that adoration for them.
But it's
I have
not-
respect as a
it's
human
not-
to human. and
but-
everyone has their
But
own
it's not
perspective.
about you loving
I
them.
think the idea is a repetitive conversation. If you can have one conversation with somebody, anybody can do that. Hey, how's your day going? Blah, 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 blah. But have a group of individuals with like-minded strategies. You have to enjoy those individuals. Like you and I, if we never got along, we would never be doing this.
There's no way we could
not
all be
true. I would
sitting in
force
this
you.
room.
That's bullshit. I would be like, fuck off, eat my dick.
But why would you?
fucking-
Why would? But again, why would you force yourself to be around people that you don't respect their opinion?
Because that's the world we live in.
No, it's not.
No,
it
dude.
is.
No, it's not. No, when you go to
That's
when you go
really
to the
not
talking
bank
about.
and you're making a withdrawal, that's the world we live in. That person behind that counter could be a dumb person.
What are you guys talking about?
I'm talking.
you're
Dude, you go
but-
anywhere. I walk out of this fucking house. Every living creature that's around me, I don't know them. I don't give
Exactly.
a shit. For them.
But you're not
However,
going to
I'm
sit
not
down
going
and
to treat
converse
them like
with them.
shit. I will. I've done it.
No,
with
you
numerous
no,
people.
not in
You're
this
not
not in this
understanding.
nature, not in the nature of having an intellectual debate with this person at random. Because
would.
if you
On a
he's
regular
not getting
basis.
it.
I've
He's
done
not
it
getting
numerous
it.
times. No, I'm just saying I've
He's thinking
done
on
that.
a small
Yeah,
scale of
he's-
just
I'm
normal
not thinking of a
interactions in
small-
life.
He's thinking
You
a
are.
one-time
No, I'm not.
conversation.
Because you go into even a larger scale.
No,
you go into all the
because what
bullshit
he
they do
stated,
now.
what he stated is that you find like-minded people. My response to that was that yes, like-minded people
Yeah.
in the sense of able to have an open discussion and respect the other person's input to that discussion,
Yes.
whether you agree
But
with
then
it or
the
not.
word got thrown out of adoring the other person,
Well,
and loving the other person.
because
Like, no,
if you
fucking throw that out
have
the
somebody
window.
that okay, I'm gonna put it to you
that
this
doesn't
way.
have it exist.
I'm gonna put it to you this way. So you walk into a Starbucks and you start a conversation with a trans whatever, and you obviously do not see eye to eye with this person. You have a debate on the regards of how you're supposed to refer to this person. Clearly it's a guy, but they want to go by female and you want to announce them as a guy, okay? Let's say this is your scenario. You can have a conversation with this person, not raise your voice and go, okay, that's your choice to have that opinion and everything. And it's my opinion to feel this way about it. And you could both separate from that conversation. You're not going to go have another discussion with that person because you see so far eye to eye that exactly what he's saying is having those similarities. It's not there.
Those conversations are massively important to have.
Well, no,
They are, but it's different than what he's referring to as to like-minded, because that person is not
I
like-minded.
just don't believe in the like-minded bullshit.
How?
we are all like
You and your wife are
individuals.
like-minded. That's how you
I get
have that
I'm not talking
relationship.
about on a tiny scale. I'm talking about on a large scale. I'm not talking about in my home. I'm not talking about with maybe my neighbor. I'm talking about like on large scale, what we see in politics, what we see with debates that happen with these different activist groups.
But that's not what the.
And then half the time, no one wants to show up to debate the other, and so it's always a one-sided thing here. And it's like, no, who gives a shit if you don't like each other? If you guys want to solve something, you just fucking put on your big boy pants or big girl pants,
But that's
whatever the fuck ever. You go have a conversation.
But again, you're not talking about how society today gets along. You're talking about how two business individuals come to terms on a business deal. Because if you're talking about two politicians, one red, one blue, who have to come together and come to terms on how are we going to make society better, even though I don't agree with you on everything and you don't agree with me, how are we going to fix this? That's different.
That's way
I can
different. That's
sit
way
into a room with somebody who I'm like, God, this motherfucker has completely different views as me, and I don't agree with them. I don't like what
I
they have to
fucking
say,
hate 'em.
but I have to sit down and solve this problem right here with them. Okay, so we're gonna sit down and we're gonna bear through it, and we're gonna get it done. But at the end of it, when it comes to how an individual such as myself socially interacts with other people, such as my children in the future, it's going to be when I say find a like-minded group of people that you can get along with and you can make a nice tight-knit group. That's what we are right here. We're three individuals who can have a conversation.
You were making the point that it was on a large scale. This is a tiny.
But if you're talking about millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, that's a
Could be
large
that.
scale. You're
Yeah.
talking about two politicians trying to solve a problem in a country. That's small scale.
That's very
Yeah,
small.
that is a small scale.
I'm talking large
I'm
scale as in
talking large scale,
300
too.
million people.
I just have a different perspective. My perspective is I don't have to like someone to have a conversation with them, even if they say
But
shit that I
that's
hate.
not the
That's not the conversation.
point.
Anybody can talk to anybody. That's not hard.
But they don't.
So
Well, that's
Unless
a
they're a
different
keyboard warrior.
topic.
so that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
It's a whole different.
I'm just
conversation.
my whole point is you don't have to fucking like somebody.
Right.
And groups of people
But
don't have
Ben,
to like
if
people
you were
talk
going
and
to
actually work through
Hold
something.
on. So, if you were to go on a hiking trip with somebody, would you take somebody you don't know or that you do know?
If they're sleeping in a tent with me, I would not, because I would not trust them with my life.
So the idea here is, who do you keep around you? People that you
Not many
trust.
people.
but
Or
regardless of the quantity.
I get what you're saying, but that's a small scale. That's an intimacy type setting.
But-
But you can take that same
can be
graph
bigger, my
and
man.
I
expand
know.
it.
I get that, but that's not the world we live in. Hence, why I keep saying that.
But we're
It's
talking.
never existed.
But what we're talking about is a
Only time it's ever-
hypothetical on how
I
do you
get that.
solve the problem.
Yeah, but all these hypotheticals, they're hypotheticals. They're not reality. The reality is that in every moment in history, you can go back in history.
But the question
only
was
times-
hypothetical.
The question was always hypothetical.
You can't have a realistic
I know.
answer
and
to
I
a
get doing the
hypothetical question.
but sometimes doing it's like when someone says, "Well, what if this? What if that?" If you sit on harp on the what if all the time, because I've heard this same narrative before from other people, not just you guys. That's why I was like, "Well, this is a dumb hypothetical." I've heard this a million times. It always stays a hypothetical because it never happens in reality.
Okay, well, fine.
You know what I mean? That's the whole my point.
Well,
whole
fine.
point about
Well,
it.
fine. Hold on. So, you say what you want to say on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You have no hold bar. You have no filter, right?
Yeah.
If you say something wrong to somebody, that person may never talk to you ever again in your life.
Or they might take a swing at you.
Oh yeah, or they might fight you.
Mhm.
I think the whole point I was trying to make to you, Ben, or to Casey, or just in general, was it's better to keep people around you that you trust and you love,
Yeah.
and that's truly it. It can be small. It can be 1 billion people.
I don't disagree with that.
But
the
aside
small
from
scale.
it just being
Yeah.
better to keep those people around, I think you're going to naturally find those people to keep around.
I think
correct.
I think when you guys were talking and you were really on, when you guys were on the point of like how you clarified when you said people that you like, and you're like-minded, and then you went and clarified on the like-minded aspect. It was like, well, no, you don't want everyone to be in like a think tank, like a bubble, like people who are like-minded in these aspects, so that way you can be progressive about your interactions.
The way
I agree with that, and that was something I was originally.
The way
going
I
to
look at it
contribute,
is how many
you already
conversations have you had with Evan, or have you had with me? And we could talk for like 2 hours on the phone about something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like 2 hours of us not 100% agreeing with each other on the same topic. And we're just giving our side of how we view it.
Mm-hmm.
Never once have we ended that conversation with, yeah, well, you can go to fucking hell. And hang up.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
But when I'm talking
as a joke,
fucking burn.
but as a joke, right? As a joke, because you love them. No
But
matter
what I
right?
mean though is like, because of what we're talking about, especially if it is something that is hypothetical, I trust and respect your opinion and your intellect and your knowledge, and that what you're saying is not just some CNN headline that you read yesterday that you're feeding me.
Dude.
It's your actual thoughts that are being given. So you can rebuttal with me nonstop and be like, no, man, I don't think, and we can be at those conversations. And then as soon as we're like, okay, that's stopping point. All right, man, I'll talk to you tomorrow. See you later.
Yeah.
And it's because it's such a like-minded person, because we're talking about a topic we have two very different views on, but we can talk about it for hours.
I think that you have a misconstrued between the term love. Like,
I think I'm stinted.
I use that as a
In
term.
this,
I use that
sure.
as a term of endearment to the people that I want around me. I don't necessarily need it as I'm gonna fuck that person, or I love that person, I'm gonna marry them. I don't mean it like that.
I
One
know
thing
that.
that- one
But
thing that I can-
love doesn't always mean romantic.
Exactly.
But one thing that I can speak on that, and this is just simple, is like, so my wife thinks that I'm on the spectrum of autism because I don't know how to process emotions. Like I'm not very good at reading and picking up on emotions, or how to address someone with emotions when something happens.
Is he mad or angry? I can't tell.
But at that same line, like, of how he is in regards to that, like, love, it's just like, well, I mean, it takes a lot for me to have love for someone.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean whenever you're saying, like, you have to have love in the human being aspect of this person. Like, I don't have to look at this person and go, hey, man, I love you.
Yeah.
I love you no matter what, even if we disagree.
I get what you're saying.
It's one of those things of, it's like,
I knew that's what you
just
meant,
that
by the
overall
way.
love of, it's like, man, I'm glad this is what we get to have.
So exactly,
the
it's
life
like
that we
the-
get
it's
to
like
have, the
respect.
ability we have.
I knew that's what
know?
you meant. I knew that's the love you were talking about. I knew that completely. But most people don't have that for people. And a lot of people who say that they do are full of shit, and they've proven time and time again to be liars.
You're coming back to my side then, to where you want to have the people around you.
Yeah, I never disagreed with that.
Yes, you did.
No,
We've been going for 20 minutes
on a
about you
massive
disagreeing.
large scale.
I never once said on a
He
massive.
would said on a
scale.
large scale. I'm talking about on a small scale, like interpersonal, like this. That's why I never disagreed with any of this.
Play it back. Play it
Like,
back.
I never once disagreed with that. I always kept saying large
Right,
scale.
but
Don't relax now, baby.
Okay,
on the
you can watch
conversation,
it. I'm
on the
talking large
conversation of large scale was talking in sense of 300 plus million people in a country that have to be able to do that. That is large scale of people who have to be able to look at, okay, you got a large group over here who are highly Christian, you got a large group over here who are highly,
Atheist, Muslim,
atheist,
fucking name
yeah,
it, right?
whatever you want to call it. You have so many different segregated groups, but the biggest segregated group in our country is red versus blue. Are you Democrat
good
or
show,
are you
but-
Republican? You could be atheist, but as long as you're with the Republicans, like, fuck it, man, you ain't gotta believe my book. But if you're gonna be like a hardcore Christian and be over here on the liberal side of things, it's gonna be like, well, you'll come around eventually.
You know who doesn't?
and-
You know who doesn't want us to respect and trust and love each other? The government, baby. They're doing it on
the red and the
purpose.
blue.
They're doing it on
Yeah.
purpose, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you gotta know that it's like these guys are really good actors.
You
Because
got big ass thumbs, boy.
It's my wife's favorite finger. Bro,
power and power.
next time your wife sends you a sweet nothing text or something like, oh, baby, I can't wait for you to get home, you should just send her a picture of your thumb. I'd be like, you remember your favorite finger?
Oh man.
It's the
I
only
love
thing.
how everybody starts looking at their thumbs.
It's the only thing that's big,
It's like a
unfortunately.
kid's first time in the locker room, and everyone starts like looking at their dick when they see the big dick walk in the room. They're like, oh shit.
Yeah, see, they said that about my thumbs, and then the guy walked in with a big dick, and they were completely
I
distracted.
love the idea. You're like in the bathroom, like, Oh man, why can't it be the same side?
Dude! At least in girth, let's go.
At least you can always tell your wife, like, you got this.
Yeah, fuck the government, right? There.
No, I'm going to backtrack again to what we were just talking about, where there was a disagreement.
Oh shit, we're going back to there?
Yeah, we are.
back
I thought we just exited.
No.
Back on the
Yeah.
highway.
Back
I
to the
never
future.
disagreed with anything for on a small scale. It was only for anything on a large scale. That was my only disagreement. And if the premise was, because I thought you were talking about a small scale, but then I believe you had said something about a large scale. I was like, no, that's
So
doesn't
but
work.
to think that it
so
couldn't.
that's what I was saying. Like, I never actually disagreed with you
but
guys. It
do
was
you
only for a
think that
large
it?
scale.
But do you think it could work on a large scale? That's my question.
No.
Wait, Donald Trump did it, dude. Everybody fucking loved that fucking retard.
Yeah, but you were still so highly divided. You were so split down the
Yeah.
middle on it, like because you had people who
And even-
loved and adored
and
him,
you
and you
have
had
to
people who
remember,
fucking wanted to shoot
a
him.
lot of
You know,
people who-
you had people who were against guns wanting to shoot him.
Yeah, and even people who did support him didn't actually like him. They just saw him as a lesser evil to somebody else who was the other candidate. So it's like that. That's a whole model.
Well, that's the same thing with Biden.
That's the same concept with any
I
president.
know that. Hence why I'm saying on a large scale, it doesn't happen.
Well, you're only given
Except for
two,
Obama. That
You're
kinda
only
happened.
given two options. How many?
That's not true.
You're, well, you're only given two options. You're given red or blue.
Yeah, fuck all that.
But
No,
that,
no, he
but
said
that
it doesn't happen with he said Obama earlier. He said no, it didn't happen with Obama. Actually, he was still going on his little like head rant over there.
Yeah, I was just saying that like using Trump as an example is not a good example either, because even the people who supported him didn't actually like him. They didn't want anything to do with him. They, in fact, they just saw him as a better choice than Hillary Clinton.
But what creates that to happen? So think of.
Because it's not Hillary Clinton.
Hold on. No,
that's
no.
the only reason
Trust,
for a lot of people.
respect.
No, listen. So think of how that happens in any area of this country. Go to Detroit and see what is heavily broadcast on the news compared to what is heavily broadcast in Tyler, Texas. You're going to have very different news. And I'm talking nationwide. You're going to have public news, whatever. But nationwide, what is going to be heavily broadcast and what's not? So if you wanted a society of people who were able to respect their neighbors and respect their choices and respect their opinions and do all of those things, well, that would create a society of people who all group together and go, no, we're together. You work for us as government. We chose you to be here as our voice, but we're in charge. People don't see that right now. People are thinking that they're the ones in charge. We do what they say.
Well, my astrological sign says that I could even.
You tried. You got part way through.
Oh, I didn't know we had that one guest.
I couldn't even get it out.
You have some BDSM shit you want to talk about too?
Oh yeah, sure. I one time saran wrapped a girl to a bed.
He knows who we're talking about, by the way. I'm not gonna say the name just cause.
I don't know who he's talking about.
I don't know what he's talking
You
about.
know this person too.
What person? Did he saran wrap to a bed?
I did that.
I hope not.
I really did that.
I know you did.
Oh, I'm confused as to
I was
what you're
there.
referring to.
You were not
I was
there.
the camera guy. I got the up close shot. I was the guy ducking around. I was like, if you're gonna pull out of her ass, like warn me. And then you didn't, and I got caked.
Oh yeah, like, what's that movie? Zack and Miri Porno.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I got frosted, dude.
But
I was trying to think a funny joke, and I just couldn't get it out.
well, I don't know, man. I just think that you could create a larger populace of people. I'm not going to say an entire society, but a larger populace of people who are more open to allowing people to just live their life if you weren't forcing so much of you have to have this opinion, you have to think this way, or you're canceled.
That's
or
religion, baby. Look at like Scientology. He said it earlier, right? Like Christianity, Muslim, yada yada yada. Like look at Scientology and all these different religions. They're like, be happy, be jolly, everything's good.
but don't do this.
But yeah, don't do that one thing.
But and you
Don't have
look
sex
at
with
it.
men.
So if CNN wasn't going on saying, you know, there's some racist Republican over here in the South who just absolutely curb stomped a transvestite into the ground, and just trying to portray that everybody who's in the South or Republican just fucking hates you for not accepting your dick. You know, and then you turn it around and go, oh, all these trans people are trying to rape your kids. well, now I don't like trans people because they're trying to rape my kids. And then they don't like me because I don't like them because they're trans. Like, you create this fucked up narrative that people start to follow. And it becomes so widespread because all you got to do is send that information and get enough people to go, that's happening. That's happening. They're trying to hurt my children.
Talked about this narrative, like this motion.
like,
what you're describing. We've talked about it several times.
You can't have a society of people who are going to respect one another when you're being told that that person you're supposed to respect is trying to harm you or your family.
And then coming back to the podcast, if y'all liked it, what you're listening to, support us.
Hence,
Hey,
let's
pass it around.
backtrack to the technological aspect and the way the country's going.
Vibrating
and how you
dildos.
were saying, like, where do you think they're expensive nowadays? Glam plugs. But no, when you're talking about where are they hurting us to, where are we being taken to, where are they shepherding us, right? Metaphorical or speaking with like
what is their end
analogy
game
here?
Obsolescence of itself,
is
dude.
exactly along these lines, and we're already in it. The whole point is that we are so dependent on everything that's gone that we have access to now, and everyone's being herded in one direction, and most people are already through the fucking gate. And the thing is that we're stuck in it now because we're so integrated in. Everyone has some propaganda. You have literally a propaganda machine in your hand 24/7. All social media is propaganda. You're going to see nothing but propaganda.
Yeah, if you have an iPhone, you just swipe over. You got a news feed of whatever they want to show you.
Exactly.
I turned mine off. Apparently, there's a bunch of hot local single bombs in my area, though. So, boys, I gotta
He's been on Pornhub.
But no,
He's like, I get all my news on Pornhub.
everything's sisters. That also plays.
Apparently, there's an alien having a threesome.
No, that plays into exactly what I said earlier too. That this would never happen on a large scale, and why it's not ever going to happen.
Well, they're not going to let it. You could make it happen on a large scale.
They've solidified that because the way they herd us in and what we're all stuck on.
Well, they're of course trying to prevent that because the more people that you have grouped together that agree with each other and have each other's back, well, there's a very small group of
swear to
people
God.
who are in the
It's
government.
getting bigger, though.
If there's unmarked vans outside my house right now because we're having this conversation,
This hasn't even been
we're
uploaded
unified,
yet.
dude. We're the
We're going to be long gone by the time the bands show up.
right now,
Yeah, but we're going to be long gone by the time the band show up. He'll have to deal with that.
knock, knock, knock.
We say that we've been dead. We just got dosed up with a bunch of LSD. We've actually been dead for
Yeah,
a while.
to the
but
AC
we
unit, dude.
Never, it's been stuck
There's
in
just
it.
a garden
I
hose underneath the
fucking
garage
hate
door.
that theory that we are all just already
on a trip.
fucking stuck in a drip, just in a fake reality.
Oh, see, I fucking sometimes fully believe that it's so real.
I fucking hate that theory.
And he
dude.
thinks that whenever he does the real drips in real. Oh, we're in the reality, bro. Like,
I don't know. I mean, I had a podcast with him last time where we kind of went into that simulation theory kind of concept, and we talked about like, okay, one of the things I mentioned, I don't mean to sideline towards something different. I know he likes to stay very heavily on topic, but like one thing I mentioned is like, you ever heard the
no, I
theory
don't,
that you
motherfucker.
have-
His
the-
ADD
I am the worst one about it. I'm really.
Well, he
bad.
always likes to come back. I'll just
tries to,
continue to
yeah.
drift away.
I've been trying to be better with this new platform. Thank you.
But anyways,
Well,
I was
podcast where
telling
we don't
him, you know how
ever
they
talk
say that
about
there's
it.
all these different dimensions where there's different versions of you, live in different, the same life
Realities.
on a different path. You know, like if you hit a fork in a road, you could have went left or you could have went right. you
different
know?
timeline.
And that other
Exactly.
alternate
Yeah. So
reality
it's like, you know, every
version,
time you
yeah.
hit a crossroad, it keeps splitting off different possibilities.
Hence why
that
you
could
have
occur.
deja vu, apparently.
Well,
yes.
to me, that's where I think simulation theory makes the most sense, because it's like I was telling him, you ever play a video game and you see like an NPC character, like they all generally look the same. They're not going to make 1,000 different versions of this for a not important thing. Same thing. You have this program, just duplicate it and let it go this way, and we'll see how the code runs. Duplicate it, let it go this way, and see how the code runs. It's just a free-flowing code, basically, that's just running, and as you go and hit those forks in the road, each one breaks off and goes, let's see which one continues. This one hits an end line or whatever and dies. This one continued here. This is the right way to go. And you can follow this pattern through this life all the way till its completion of how many routes did it have to take. It's like a giant maze.
So there's a really fun YA novel about that sort of concept.
Is this the one you told me about? The one a while back, that book?
I read a lot of books.
I know you told me about it. Anyways, keep going. I think I know. What
It's called like Becoming the Wizard or Here Comes the Wizard, and this guy breaks into the code of reality and then he can change his height, his wallet size, his clothes, everything, and then he can travel.
Wallet size, but nobody's really changing.
And then, yeah. And then he travels back in time, and now he's stuck in like medieval ages.
Yeah.
And he has a cell phone, like street clothes, and they're like, "Holy shit, he's a wizard!" It's the same sort of concept, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you can break into the simulation, then you can then do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
So he better climb to the closest.
And
closest
mentally, if
mountain.
you're able to do that, if you're able to, like, you know, realize what is actually going on, if this was a simulation theory, whatever, and it's like you're just an adaptive AI at that point where all of a sudden you're like, hey, I just realized what's actually happening here. And then you can jump in and go, well, I'm going to go over here. And then you just make your own code to be like, well, I'm going to go and do this and just fuck with this shit. I can fuck with what they think is reality.
That's part of that
when the
book.
Matrix like comes in and you're fucking flying around just pretending you're Superman and you're like, fuck you, motherfuckers.
Best part of that book is that he finds Merlin, and Merlin did the same thing. Merlin's like, "Yeah, I did it too.
Yeah.
I went back.
Like, yeah, I did
I
it
broke the
too, bro."
code. Sorry, bud."
Yeah, the whole sword and stone thing. I just put glue on it.
He's like, I just stood there every
It's a really
time
funny
somebody
book.
tried pulling it and was like, not today.
Not happening. But yeah, if anything's true, probably simulation theory is probably the most likely in general, right? Like,
Right? Yeah.
this makes the most sense.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, like I told him, I said, the concept of like how we could have been through creation, you know, of being visited, mutated, all these other things. Like we do the same thing in a society.
Have you ever looked in the microscope and seen an entire civilization?
I thought you were
existing?
I thought you were ending right at a microscope. I was like,
Have you ever
Yo,
seen
have you ever seen a microscope, bro?
Those things are insane.
they're cool as fuck. I saw like shit like that was this big is now this big.
I tried looking at it without it and I was like, what is that? And then I put it underneath and I was like, that's what it is.
Must be what my wife feels like when she puts on her glasses. Can't see, can't see, can't see, can't see.
Every time we're in the bedroom, I tell her to bring the glasses.
She has one binocular.
That way
the
she can see
entire
this
time.
small dick, but huge.
It's got a
balls.
big lens on
She
it.
doesn't
She's
need
like,
glass.
wow.
She doesn't need glass to see my big balls. No. They're there. They're just a blurry blob.
But that's the concept. It's
All right, Lance Armstrong. He's like, my ball's swollen.
Testes.
That's the concept of the.
There was a time period where I had a rampage of hitting him in the nuts. And I feel really bad today because if this guy has swollen balls, there was so much ball punishment that I provided to him.
The
over the
sad part
course of-
is,
That's awesome.
what you're leaving out is that you got the same punishment dish.
I did, but I was just,
Oh.
I feel like I was more brutal with it because I hit you no matter where we were, what we were doing.
When you were
Almost, man, because he would like just stand there, nut check him, fall to the ground, stand up, nut check him. Like
I'd be
if he
blitzed
left
time.
himself
I'd be blitzed
unguarded, I was
At the
hitting him
time,
in
it
the
was a long
nuts.
time ago. No, the best one one of the brutal ones I ever did to you was the fact that I used to be your DD for getting you home when you be trashed. Bro, you know how many times that you would try to like go, I'd be like, bitch, and I would just punch you in the nuts multiple
I
times.
don't remember. That was
I
called
know.
the blackout.
All I know is that when I hit you in the nuts, you listened to what I said. You did exactly what I wanted you to do.
See, I would wait until he was taking a drink of water, taking a bite of food.
Casey, you sound way cooler, dude. You would get drunk and he would take you home. Dude, you sound like a nerd, dude. Are you a nerd?
So we dished out horrible punishment.
Oh man, so I think he threw. He dropped me down a flight of stairs.
Yeah,
because on several occasions he would be my DD. I liked the alcohol, and I would get so blackout drunk, and like he would bring me home. We lived in a split level house.
I wasn't much of a drinker.
Yeah.
It was never my thing.
No, he would just smoke his brains out on a regular basis. But
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
But we lived in a split level home. You walk through the front door, you go up or you go down. There's no middle
no
level,
middle
you know?
You just push you downstairs.
Well, I mean, he would be polite enough to carry me out of the car, get me to that door, and then, like, if the stumble occurred and it was him or me or both of us going down, it was fucking me. He was
That's
letting
fair.
me go, and it was just kind of like go from the top to the wall at the bottom, and then grab my feet or my
It
hands,
was like
drag me
10
into my room.
stairs, dude. Like, it wasn't like 2 steps. It was like.
And then it would just
10
drag me
steps.
into my room, throw me in there, and close the door, and be like, "All right, cool, he's done.
Yeah.
Hopefully, no
Yeah.
brain damage. Be okay."
It's okay. He thought he was gonna get me this one time, but he ended up kicking a. Never mind.
Oh yeah, that's fucked up. So okay, no, I'll tell this one. So, I
Keep
got
it PG.
I got really blackout drunk. I drank a lot, He's taking me back home. I remember several stops along the way for me to, you know, empty my stomach into a parking lot or at the side of the road. And then I had told him before I ever started drinking that night, I got to be to work at this time, make sure I wake up, because I knew what level I was going to get to.
Let me give clarification here. That is not my responsibility for you to get up for fucking work in the morning.
They wake me up for work.
Right.
And you're the one who wanted to go get shit faced. I didn't want to even go. But anyways, continue.
But I had tasked him with this, and he had delightfully agreed that he would do it. So he was going to be the DD. I'm going to say delightfully. I got to do it. So
I was still wanting to go out. So, I don't give a shit.
So like I say, I got hammered. He takes me back, drops me down the flight of stairs like normal night, takes me to my room, and I wake up in the morning just naturally, no alarm, no nothing, no bin, just get woken up.
No,
And-
he's used to me being there in bed with him.
well, I mean, sometimes I like to be the big spoon, you know. So I'm waiting, you know. Like I look at my phone, I'm like 2 hours late for work already by the time I'm waking up. So immediately I'm filled with rage. His asshole was supposed to wake me up for work. I run into his room, which is right next to mine, and at the time he had just recently moved to Colorado, so like he didn't have a mattress or anything yet. We hadn't gotten him anything, so he was sleeping on the floor. And so like I run in full rage, hungover, and I'm like, I'm gonna kick him in the gut real hard and wake his ass up. I kick, and there's a girl there, and you see, and he's Big Spoon, so he's Big Spooning her, and all of a sudden you see her go, "Ugh." And she curls up into a ball. And the worst part about the whole interaction is it's like, look at her, she's curled up. He sits up and goes, "Hey, what's up, man?" And the conversation completely avoided her and just went, "Man, you didn't wake me up for work." And he goes, "I got you, man. I called him and told him you were sick." And I went, "Oh, okay, cool." And I went back to bed. He rolled over and goes to sleep. She's still curled up, just like, trying
This poor woman.
I didn't know she was there.
That's so tight, though. Like, I love the concept.
I did
"God
feel
damn
bad
it,
for the
man."
record.
I will say this though, that I never even asked if she was okay.
I would love to be. I would love to be a fly on that wall in that situation. Not to watch you have sex, but to watch you kick a bitch.
You want to see what endurance does? Bro.
Don't skip leg day.
I'm gonna make a recording.
Your core, bitch.
Dude, I'm gonna make a recording tonight of why you never skip leg day.
Dude, that would have been
Casting couch is up in my room right now. I'll break it in.
You're walking in your underwear, still hungover, like, "Bastard! Oh shit!"
I mean, that's pretty accurate. Yeah,
You know, the worst part is that the face that he made when he recognized that he kicked her is not like, "Oh my gosh," it was like his brain was trying to process that this isn't me. Like,
Where am I?
He was like, he was so like, he had a look of anger and confusion. He was like, like it was like pure chaos. Like his head, like all the gears went full stop and started breaking. He was like, what the fuck am I looking at right now? Like, when did the fucking shit start living in this?
That would have ruined my hungover brain. That would have ruined me.
Didn't stop. He went right back to sleep.
Yeah.
Dude, I heard him sawing logs like a motherfucker. Like 30 seconds later.
What? So what happened to this woman? Did she just stay there, go home? Y'all are really good dudes.
I have a lot. Me and Casey, a lot of our party times were all blackouts. Like, I don't.
There was a
Most party times.
well, there was a couple year period there where like we stayed so highly inebriated. And the funniest thing about that I gotta say is we stayed jacked the whole time that we stayed really fucked up the
We
whole
worked
time.
out 4 hours a fucking day.
We didn't have anything else to do. We
There's
lived.
a solid 10-hour period in my life where I was just getting high and drunk and lifting weights 24/7. That's all I ever did.
It's amazing how those three are such a good combination together at the time.
The way you went like this, I thought you were like doing like the
You got
fisting
that
up there,
Italian,
bro.
man. What are you, Italian?
Welsh.
Well,
Not even close. Not even close. Hey.
And this is why the America's failing, because of
There's a goddamn
immature young
Welshman making
men,
Italian
which
hand
I am
gestures.
not.
Bunch of white dudes getting shit-faced kicking women.
If anyone's looking for the woman kicker, he's right there. If you're watching it, he's the far right of the screen.
It's all right,
That
Casey.
motherfucker.
I was once shit-faced and dropped a bitch down some stairs. So
Yeah, that sounds way
We all
worse
know
than
it
what
was
I did.
intentional.
I was hammered. We were, you know, getting in there, and
He's got the crazy eye from Little Nicky.
and I tripped, and there she went.
Yeah, there's so many fucked up stories that him and I can tell about these times that, I mean, and like I say, when I say fucked up, I mean in the literal sense of like we were so fucked up.
Okay,
Like we used
nice
to go.
save.
We used to. He's like, no.
I was over
Don't be going
on the
there.
camera. I'm sure they just.
I'm like, I gotta clear this up for him a little bit. Like when I say fucked up story, I mean like
Casey was the proprietor of this problem.
we were doing so much stupidity at a time when it's like we would go rock climbing, free climbing, no ropes, no nothing.
In pajamas.
But what we would do to get us encouraged to do this is smoke a joint at the bottom, climb to the top, because it looked like it was a great place to smoke a joint before we climb back down a mountain.
Or sometimes we would find like a middle shelf on like those 100-footers that we would climb, and we'd be like, "Oh, look, we can perfectly sit and have just enough to lean back and not fall off. Let's pull out a bowl."
Yeah, like,
Like,
but some of the
It was nice.
I remember driving down Academy Boulevard in Colorado Springs and had a couple buddies in the car, and I saw him. I'm driving. It makes no sense for me to start climbing out of the car on a public roadway, but I saw him, wanted to get his attention.
To me,
Yeah,
I'm keep going. I'm
yeah. You were in that Malibu, that old golden Malibu car,
Oh yeah.
and I had a Malibu. It was a silver one.
Yeah,
so
you had a nicer one. Fuck
yeah, better.
That's how it goes.
But
Beards.
we're going.
Oh, we all three have beards right now.
But we're going, and I
not
just
no beer.
I just started climbing out of the driver's seat of the car to try and climb into his car while my buddy's on his phone holding the steering wheel. Like these are just the stupid incidences of my youth where it's like, what the fuck were we doing?
Yeah, we've all done stupid
Am I
shit
grabbing
like that.
anyone?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I used to roll blunts while my buddy drove, and I hit the gas.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna bring us back to topic.
Oh, I have such a good blunt story. 6:35, going to the mall, stop dead traffic. Stop dead traffic. I mean,
Allegedly, this is all allegedly.
it's all
Everything
of course.
that's happened, the woman kicking, all allegedly.
but stop dead traffic 6:35, right? This is years ago. I'm in the back seat of his beat down Cavalier, and I'm rolling a blunt. And I mean, we're joking, laughing, having a merry-go time, you know, and just wonderful, whatever. Not aware of anybody around us. There's no tint on his windows either. Like you can see right into the car. So when I get done, spark this thing up and go and look over, and there's a Dallas cop staring right at me. Like
literally a foot
he's
away. He's
literally
stuck in traffic,
eye line,
side by
stuck
side.
in traffic right next to us. Watched me do this entire thing and then go and start the whole process, and he's just staring. So I'm coughing and coughing.
He's trying. No.
I can't
He was
tell
trying
him.
not to let it out.
Yeah.
And his face was
Trying to
turning
ghost
purple.
it.
But I'm trying to like also inform him as I'm passing this to him. There's a cop. There's a cop. There's a cop. I'm not saying it at all. I'm just going.
Which I didn't get, by the way.
So he's grabbing it. Of course, he's sitting here taking his hit and doing all this. And then by that time, I'm able to get a clear enough voice and to go, "There's a cop right next to us."
And my instinctual reaction is I looked over and I go, I was toking it. I was like hitting that thing a few different times.
We
And I
sat
was in the
there for
middle
like-
of a full inhale. I was like, oh.
We sat there for like what felt like a century, just staring straight, just out the windshield.
With the smoke
Everybody's
going
looking
up.
forward.
So,
We didn't even
mind
roll
you-
down the window, so the smoke's just circulating in the car. We're
Hey,
just like,
and it was the middle of summer and I didn't have AC.
Oh my god. Y'all forced a hot box.
We wanted to
Literally.
hide from the cop.
That's
Yeah,
My
we
windows weren't tinted.
Yeah,
by
we
the
were
way.
thinking the smoke would roll out the window into his car, and then he'd be like, probable cause.
you wanted to hide from the
smoke screen. I hope he couldn't see through the windows.
Meanwhile, he's writing a ticket.
No.
Nothing happened. He
Hey,
drove
just to put
away.
it in perspective for anyone listening,
What's he gonna do? Y'all just fucking sitting in dead stop traffic.
a lot of things. I've seen movies.
I mean, y'all white. He's like,
so-
these fucking kids.
so-
Fine.
He was like, fuck the
To
paperwork.
put it, to
Yeah.
put all this in perspective for people listening, if you are familiar with North Texas and you know about 635 and that Lyndon B. Johnson.
8-lane wide.
Well, no. This was
highway.
back when it wasn't expanded yet.
It was like
in the middle of
like 5 lanes at
construction.
that time or
Gotcha,
something.
okay.
So it was narrowed down to where
This
you
is
only
like
had 2 lanes of traffic.
2007,
Okay,
2008.
right on.
Yeah, this was 2008, 2009. So it
This
was
was
like
a while ago.
it was at the point where they didn't have 4 lanes, 5 lanes on each side. They only had 2.
It was a full
because it
teenager
was-
ago.
Yeah. Oh my God. Shut the fuck up.
Feeling old yet, boys?
I felt old the other day. Did you not see what they added to the technology museum?
Yeah.
A fucking
Walkman.
No, it wasn't a Walkman. It was a fucking Sony or Samsung anti-skip CD player, portable CD player.
I used to break the lid off those and draw on the CDs while they would spin. Anyway.
Just hold a marker there and be
Yeah.
like, pretty line.
Yeah.
In other news, Evan also ate crayons when he was a kid.
You were in
And
the
they
rain?
tasted good.
Tastes like purple.
A crayon eater.
But yeah,
The government hates us.
the government hates us. I'm gonna read 1 or 2 of these because I took time to write this shit.
I want people to know.
Yeah, I'm gonna go pee during this.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to take a bath.
Okay. Well, let's take a quick break, real quick, and
typical
then we'll
Evan
come
P.
back.
break.
Yeah. And I
A
will
typical
freeze.
Evan P. break episode.
Yep, typical Evan P break, and we're back. I don't even remember what we were talking about. We were talking about things that didn't matter.
Yeah, pretty
Probably.
much.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get back to the topic at hand. Just to wrap this up, and we totally fucking sidetracked it for a while. So I just want to read a few highlights of
These dogs. we have dogs in here now.
yeah.
Puppies, nonetheless.
I'm not going to go into detail. I'm just going to list off the controversial things that have happened with the government and people involved that have caused this giant, like, just everything built on top of each other, creating, this whole, the lack of trust type thing,
Yeah.
right? Now, this is between 1950 and 1954 was the McCarthy era. Basically, Senator Joseph McCarthy basically saw an intense anti-communism suspicion in the U.S., leading to like a campaign accusing government officials and others of being communists or communist sympathizers. And there was like an erosion. This was like a period of erosion of public trust, and shit like that, with the government
Just
false act.
Shit like that.
Yeah, stupid
Just
shit.
Thursday.
Yeah, it's typical.
The Sherman Adams scandal that happened in 1958, where basically, long story short, Sherman Adams took a bribe, essentially, like took a cut, like was given something to do something. Basically, it was a bribe.
I'm a firm believer that Eisenhower had contact with aliens, and they like warned him of like the military complex issues. So
Yeah, I believe in that too, for sure. I mean, well, I don't know if I fully believe, but it's got some interesting shit
Yeah.
about it that you can't help but wonder. Next one, Bay of Pigs. That was 1961. If you don't know what that is, it's basically it was a failed landing operation on the southwestern coast of Cuba by Cuban exiles who opposed Fidel Castro's Cuban Revolution.
it was financed by the government.
Yeah,
the
it
US
was
government.
financed by the United States government, and yeah, it was pretty fucking stupid. A lot of these are pretty fucking stupid.
Most of them are fucking stupid, right?
Yeah, and then there's 1967, the Pentagon Papers, and basically it was like leaked documents, titled "Report of the Office of the Secretary of Defense, Vietnam Task Force," basically saying that they misled the public, which everyone knew about this, about the Vietnam War. It was all bullshit. It was, the whole reason it's getting into it was a lie.
Sounds like a lot like the Ukraine war right now, huh?
Oh yeah,
And the
100%.
papers they just released about those.
Watergate scandal. That's pretty. I think that's a common one. I think a lot of people know about.
You should know at least.
Yeah, you should know at least it was just a political scandal involving
Cover up.
Nixon's administration. Basically, the Democratic National Committee's headquarters have been broken into and wiretapped by Nixon's re-election committee, and they tried to cover it up and all that shit, and yeah, it led to Nixon's resignation. But it still made a huge fucking impact on the public, all that bullshit. Koreagate, that was in 1976. Basically, just more bullshit. Where members of Congress were doing fucked up shit, taking bribes and favors and doing all that crap.
I've never heard
People
of
found out
Korea
about.
Gate.
Really?
Yeah.
Basically, it's South Korean political operatives sought influence and through within Congress through bribes and favors, and people found out that that they took these bribes and got us involved in shit.
Christ.
Doing
Well, I
fucked
mean,
up
we were
stuff.
already involved. I mean, you were
Yeah.
involved after after the Korean War.
This one is I believe this.
I mean,
part of the
that's
Desert
the
Storm.
influence that we have is once we go in to aid a country, our influence never leaves.
Yeah.
No.
It stays there forever, right?
Yeah, same with Korea. We aided South Korea in separating from North Korea.
Yeah.
We've never left. Been there
Yeah.
ever since.
Number 7, Iran-Contra affair, and that's 1985 to 1987. Basically, high-level Reagan administration officials secretly facilitated the sale of arms to Iran, which was under an arms embargo. And people found out about it, and they bypassed like congressional prohibition, and the public exposure to these illegal actions led to multiple prosecutions, and like people, another fucking tally on the board for people not trusting the government. The HUD scandal in the 1980s was the Department of Housing's and Urban Development scandal, saw several officials, and including Secretary Samuel Pierce, implicated in charges of bribery,
Dude, that one was a really
and
big
mismanagement.
real estate scandal.
Yeah, federal funds.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, basically, the scandal resulted in several convictions and emphasized corruption within federal agencies. This is the Keating Five. This one I didn't hear about. I came across this one. This is 1989 to 1991. Keating Five scandal involved the U.S. Senators Alan Cranston, Dennis Ticcassini, DeConsi, I don't know, John Glenn, Donald Regal Jr., and John McCain. John McCain.
You're
Were
also not
accused-
Italian. It's Dennis DiConcini.
DeConsi.
There you go.
These people were accused of corruption by intervening on behalf of Charles Keating Jr., a business implicating its savings and loan crisis. So they were taking, that shit happened. Bill Clinton impeachment. He got
We
a
all know what
blowjob.
happened with Bill
Yeah.
He
Clinton.
got sucked off in the Oval Office.
Get some dome, and they
Yeah,
hated him for it.
yeah.
And if you
Basically,
look at
charges
his
of
wife, do you blame him?
yeah, but Clinton was impeached on charges of perjury and obstruction of justice regarding his. Oh yeah, it's Monica Lewinsky. He also sold like missiles to the Chinese and shit. And misused power.
But getting head, that's
Yeah,
irresponsible.
Every
Right,
president has
Enron,
done
that's a big
that.
one.
He just got caught.
Enron was fucking crazy.
yeah.
Enron scandal was a complex financial scandal that involved the Enron Corporation. While this was primarily a corporate scandal, it had significant political fallout and led to scrutiny of government oversight and the relationship between politicians and corporations. That was in 2001. I thought that said Jackoff scandal for a second. That is the Jack Abramoff scandal in 2005. It's a lobbyist named Jack Jackoff who was found guilty of fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. He had bribed public officials and defrauded clients, implicating several members of Congress in the process.
Hey, real quickly, if this dog continues, that lamp is going to be the first thing to go.
Yeah.
These dogs are in here wrestling. We're gonna lose a lamp here in a second.
Next one is Operation Fast and Furious. Not with Vin Diesel.
Family, baby, family.
Family. This happened in 2010. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives (ATF) operation allowed firearms to be sold to straw buyers in hopes of tracing them to Mexican drug cartels. However, everyone should know about this one. I knew.
I've
about
never
this.
heard of this.
You didn't? Oh,
Hey,
dude. So basically, what they did is that they took all these firearms, right, and they sold them, and the whole point of it was to track the guns down. So they put trackers in this shit, and they track where the guns go, and then they can go and they find where these guns are going to because they're trying to find cartel leads, like all this stuff. And they didn't do anything with it, and they started finding all the guns inside the United States at crime scenes. And it's like, wait, I thought you were tracking this shit. And they're like, well, we put a tracker in the crate. It's like, you didn't put a tracker on the guns? Like nothing?
And part of that too is they found a bunch of corrupt cops who were actually taking in firearms from crime scenes, because what'll happen is they'll log these guns and put them into like inventory essentially for whatever crime. It gets a little tag
Hey,
associated
your
with it.
microphone. You need to be closer.
These dogs are wrestling on his feet.
Yeah. But what they would do is they would take all of these illegal, unmarked, unregistered guns out of, you know, lockup, and they would go and sell them to like Mexico. So like it's really easy to get into Mexico. So a bunch of like guys from the military, a bunch of guys from the police on their weekends would go from San Diego down to Mexico, go make a deal, sell a bunch of guns for,
Holy
you know, a couple $100,000 and do this. And then all of these guns started being linked to other crimes. And they were like, how the fuck is this gun even out there? And then they were finding cops and arresting them and doing that. But it's like, they didn't stop it. It's still going on.
Yeah,
It's just, they just make it look like a bust. They're like, we caught a group, you know?
Yeah, and that was one aspect of it, but in the Operations Fast and Furious, that whole title, like the other side of it is that they lost thousands of military grade assault rifles, not semi-automatic.
Oh, they
that
did
we
that on
get here.
purpose, dude. They had to have done
Yep.
that on purpose.
That's what I think. I think it was intentional. I think that it was a sell, and they just played it off as and they knew they would get.
Well, but I
busted
mean, the
for it.
biggest drug dealer in the world is the American government.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we will literally buy the drugs and then go sell the drugs back for them to go sell.
Fucking
Like,
CIA.
we do it all the time.
Cocaine. Fucking.
Well, but it's heroin. I mean, you don't think that we go and invade countries that are mass producing opium for no reason, right? Or go and provide aid to a fellow country that also produces opium. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, think of how many countries we've gone to who produce opium on large scales. Why? Because it is such an acquired drug to the point to where we have turned it into a pill that all you got to do is get a prescription for. Back hurt? Got you, boo.
Got you, boo.
That's all it is, you know? I
Now
mean,
you're never shitting again.
Yeah.
well, but what better industry get you to become an addict to something?
Yeah. Yeah. The next one on the list is the 2016 election. Now, I didn't do every big major one. I just did like highlighted ones. I didn't try to like
The ones you thought were important.
remotely important. Yeah. I had some in there that were random. There were some that I was torn between, but I wasn't going to sit here and write up fucking 20 pages of size 8 text. Like,
we
fuck that.
barely even talked about it.
Yeah. So the 2016 election, basically, and this turned out to be the opposite. So it said the U.S. intelligence community assessed that the Russian government conducted an influence campaign to undermine the U.S. presidential election with a clear preference for Donald Trump. Investigations in the matter raised questions about the integrity of the electoral process and resulted in multiple indictments and convictions. However, it got a Uno reverse card, and you found out that the like people like Hillary Clinton,
The
and
Clinton
Biden,
administration.
yep, and Biden were all taking payouts from Russia, and it's all known now. Like, you know, especially with Biden.
Well, they're taking
now is-
payouts with Ukraine.
Yep,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Like, they were in bed with Ukraine.
it's
not
public
Russia.
now. It's finally public now, and people know about it, but no one's doing anything about it on a congressional level. But Biden.
Well, I mean, his
it's a
son
blatant fact
is
now.
gonna
and his
potentially
son's a
maybe
whole
get
new
to
thing.
do community service.
Yeah, like what the fuck is that? You know, and his son, laptop,
He committed major crimes,
drugs. Oh yeah, so
but Snowden is stuck in Russia and can't ever come back. But he committed major crimes against the country and took
Wasn't he
bribes.
like recorded like trying to bribe the Chinese government to give him?
He was
money?
recorded doing everything.
Yeah.
He was never not recorded. They have so many records of what that guy has done, and whenever they go to talk about it, they're like, I mean,
Yeah, but we've all done that, right?
well,
right?
but I mean, you just think about like all the whistleblowers who have been exiled or had to run or been imprisoned, and it's like this guy literally did crimes against this country, and we're like, but I mean, his dad's the president, so
yeah.
well, I mean, we
Shit.
can't blame him.
Yeah,
We
but yeah,
can.
so the 2016 election, that was the bullshit that they put out. Turns out it was the opposite. Trump did not have any kind of collusions with Russia, and that all got proved time and time in court already that he did not. Then there, of course, the impeachment of Donald Trump. Everyone knows about this shit. This is all recent. Then, of course, I went ahead and put in COVID-19, just because we all know that it is they lied, blatantly lied to the American people about COVID. Basically pushing this disillusionment on everybody. And
Yeah, but it did exactly what they wanted it.
oh yeah, they did exactly what they wanted to do.
I mean,
It was
so far, I
intentional.
mean, we can read through a whole list of
but that
things
was
that
the
have
highlights
happened,
of just events.
yeah.
You know, it's nice to have a list.
Yeah.
But it's
But-
just crazy. You can look at that list and you just see how it just progressively gets worse and worse and worse, and nothing is being done about it.
I'm excited to see
evidence
the next
is there.
5 years of fucking headlines that are going to be.
I'm nervous to see who the next president is.
Dude, the next one's not going to be that exciting. It's going to be the one after that, to where.
Well,
There's a good possibility it'd be Trump.
here's a kicker,
There
right?
is.
Here's a kicker. So we were watching The Simpsons the other day. My kids are all into The Simpsons now. So we're watching an episode where it's like Bart and he's seeing 30 years into his future. And he's like a bum or whatever, but his sister is becoming the first woman president. And it's right after Donald Trump. And it's like, it's funny. It's like, okay, so there was a woman president who was trying to compete with Donald Trump. He lost. Well, if he gets reelected and then the president after him happens to be a woman, it's going to be like, all right, Matt Groening, we need to have a real fucking talk, bro, because you need to just go ahead and step into this position because you know what's about to happen.
Yeah, you really need to be telling us you're a time traveler.
Yeah, tell us what's going to happen
It's
in
kind of
20
wild
years.
that
We
The
need to know.
Simpsons has predicted so many fucking things.
I'm excited to see if Futurama predicts the same thing.
Oh, yeah, they're bringing it back.
Are they really?
Yeah.
That's good. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Futurama
they're
was great.
dropping like a new season
Nice.
on Hulu.
No, I think I saw an ad.
Represent.
Well, that's the end, huh?
Yeah, that
If you say this
that
long,
wraps
thank
it
you. I
up.
love you.
Appreciate
I
it.
love you. Ben doesn't love you. He's a believer.
I don't love anybody.
Thanks for the invite, guys.
Yeah, anytime.
Yep. And that's it.
Smartly uneducated.